Chapter 339 Jianghu's Morals, Part 2, Young Miss, where are you going? Eldest young sir said that you aren't allowed to go out and need to stay in bed. After Yu Fu finished eating breakfast, she was led back to bed by Lian Zhu and the others. Before her feet could even touch the ground, she was quickly reminded by Lian Bai that she was not to get out of bed. Yu Fu pouted, Sister Lian Bai, are you one of my people or eldest brothers? Lian Bai blushed, of course, this servant is one of young Miss people. That's why everything I do is for young Miss benefit. The things that eldest young sir said are for young Miss benefit, thus this servant will naturally listen to them. Yu Fu rolled her eyes, I want to speak with second brother. How about you go and find him for me? Just tell second brother that my health makes it inconvenient for me to go out. Have him take care of Yu Yang and young Miss Yin for me. The manor's female guests were originally supposed to be taken care of by Yu Fu, as she was the only female host in the manor. Her handing this matter to Gu Jiugu could not be considered a mistake. Many of the manor's affairs were already being handled by Gu Jiugu. When she thought that she was going to see Gu Jiugu, Lian Bai's heart skipped a beat, and she subconsciously stroked the hair at her temples. Yu Fu saw this and immediately knew that there could be something interesting. Go quickly. I will lay here and won't go anywhere. As Lian Bai turned around and left, Yu Fu moved quickly and got dressed, then prepared to go and see someone important, Bai Buyang. Marquis Gu's manor was currently at the heart of the struggle in the capital. Bai Buyang was the one that Gu Shubai and the others should be focused on, yet everyone was wasting their time worrying about her. This left her feeling a bit embarrassed. She did not know where Lian Zhu and Yao Lan had gone, but this allowed Yu Fu to successfully leave her courtyard, as she headed toward the manor's guest room. She ran into two servants, and they were carrying flower pots. It seemed that they were bringing them to the manor's greenhouse. Seeing Yu Fu, they immediately bowed in salute. Congratulations, young miss. Yu Fu nodded in reply but suddenly realized something. They did not say greetings but congratulations. What were they congratulating her for? Yu Fu covered her face in embarrassment and continued forward. She then ran into a group of 3 or 4 grannies. Congratulations, young miss. Hee, thank you, thank you. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Covering her face once more, she basically ran away, as the grannies behind her watched her parting figure with smiles on their faces. Our young miss has finally grown up. It has been a long road. That's right. With this, young miss will soon be able to marry the eldest young sir and will be able to provide the Marquis manor with heirs. As Yu Fu continued on her way, she ran into countless people congratulating her. In the beginning, she was embarrassed, but she gradually got used to it, smiling and nodding to the people who congratulated her. She was smiling on the outside but was cursing them on the inside. Yan Zheng, that bastard, had made it so that everyone in the manor knew her secret. He had better pray that she never catch him, or she would surely use some sort of poison to leave him begging for mercy. When she finally arrived at the guest room, Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai were both inside. Seeing Yu Fu, they both came out. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Gu Shubai said, didn't I tell you to rest in your room? Why have you come out? Yu Fu's expression betrayed her embarrassment and said that she did not want to talk about it. Eldest brother, I'm fine. I just wanted to come and see if I could help at all. Bai Buyang and his friend were people who had helped in assassinating the ruler, so they might not be willing to tell Gu Shubai and the others the truth. However, Yu Fu had a way to make them speak. Gu Shubai smiled and said, I know that you have been anxious to get to the bottom of the case. Since you have come, just obediently sit down and don't run around. We happen to be listening to them talk about this, so come in and listen with us. The group opened up the warmest spot for Yu Fu. Fortunately, nobody congratulated her or brought up yesterday's matter. They all acted as if they did not know, which allowed Yu Fu to feel much more at ease. To the side were two grown men dressed in attire common to members of Jianghu. The two were wearing plain shirts and jackets, but they could not conceal the muscles that had been developed from training in martial arts. Their eyes contained the satisfaction of having escaped with their lives. Gu Shubai pointed at one of the men and said, "This one is Bai Bu Yang. The one beside him is his friend, Chen Li Yun. Both are nicknames from Jianghu." Yu Fu nodded to the two, and the two cautiously bowed to her. Gu Shubai said, "This is Princess Zhenjiang. There's no need for you two to be too courteous. Please continue." Bai Bu Yang was the one with a centipede-shaped scar on his face. He nodded. "I was saying that someone ordered me to teach archery to a nobleman. As long as I taught them for 5 days, I would be given 1,000 taels of silver. I am a poor member of Jianghu. Aside from my archery skills, I don't have any other strengths. I previously earned some money from teaching archery, but this was the first time receiving 1,000 taels of silver. The people who came refused to say who had sent them and refused to say whom I was teaching. They just told me to prepare a living space in the capital, and the nobleman would come to seek me out on his own. I was coming to the capital to see Brother Yun, so I decided to move into his courtyard. After that, the second prince came and kindly invited me to the second prince's manor to teach him archery." Gu Hanamo said, "Then what was going on with the lotus flower arrow?" Bai Bu Yang found this matter a little hard to talk about, only speaking after a long pause. "It was given to me by the people who came to look for me at the very beginning. They just said that I should teach the second prince using that sort of arrow. Otherwise, with the second prince's ability to learn martial arts, it would have been impossible to see any improvements in just 5 days. For the sake of the 1,000 taels of silver, I had no choice but to teach him using that sort of arrow." The second prince very quickly became adept with a bow. I clearly knew that someone was controlling the arrow from the shadows, but I did not say anything. Qian Li Yun patted him on the shoulder and looked toward Gu Huaijiang and the others. "Lord Marquis Gu, Brother Yang has strayed from Jianghu's morals by doing this, but he did not know that the other side would use the lotus flower arrows to kill the ruler. I would swear on my life that if Brother Yang knew that it was for the sake of something as vile as killing the ruler, he absolutely would not have done it." Before coming, Yu Fu thought that she would see creatures akin to suicide soldiers, and they would be willing to do anything for the sake of money. But seeing these two people for herself, Yu Fu realized that she had been too narrow-minded. She had thought too poorly of these two people but did not know that Jianghu had a morality that was even more profound than what the current court had. Bai Bu Yang's shame showed this morality. Qian Li Yun swearing on his life showed this morality. Chapter 340 Not Going to the Eldest Prince's Manor, Part 3. Then why did you run away after that? Once Gu Shubai said this, the room fell silent, and Bai Bu Yang's eyes became covered in a layer of gray. It seemed as if he had recalled something unbearable from his past. Gnashing his teeth, he said with difficulty, "I got the 1,000 taels of silver that were promised. Coming back to look for Brother Yun, I suddenly heard assassins outside. The second prince had already been arrested. At that time, Brother Yun knew that things were not good. We packed up some things and left the courtyard. The alley outside was densely packed with over 50 experts standing there. Holding blades, they rushed at us. Though Bai Bu Yang and Qian Li Yun were experts from Jianghu, facing off against over 50 well-trained assailants, it was evident just how much danger they faced. He covered the scar on his face. This scar is from an injury that I got from one of the assailant's blades. It's fortunate that Brother Yun was there, or the cut wouldn't have just been on my face. It would have taken my head." Qian Li Yun said, "At that time, I saw that Brother Yang could not handle it on his own, so I brought him along and fled. Unfortunately, the two of us are poor and only had one horse between us, and we were completely unable to escape. In that desperate situation, we hid in a farm, thinking that the assailants would surely search more distant areas, not thinking that we would hide in a farm so close by. We were able to enjoy a few days of safety, but the imperial might was too great, and everything under the heavens belongs to the rulers. In the end, we were still discovered. Qianliyun reached this point, then stood up and cupped his hands. We brothers thanked eldest young sir for aiding us and thank Lord Marquis for taking us in. The grace of saving our lives is one that will never be forgotten. Before anyone else could speak, Bai Buyang suddenly dropped to his knees and kowtowed deeply. Lord Marquis Gu, eldest young sir, this humble one knows that I assisted in the murder of the ruler and do not dare to defend myself nor ask for forgiveness, but Brother Yun is innocent. As a friend, he simply provided me with a place to live, and he did not know anything about what was happening. Lord Marquis Gu, please understand that I alone must bear the burden for this crime. It has nothing to do with Brother Yun. Brother Yang, you, Qianliyun anxious aid, why must you separate me from this? You and I met by chance in Jianghu and, after a short time, became friends who would share good times and bad times together. For something so big, it's only natural that you and I would share the burden together. Bai Buyang said, Brother Yun, don't say any more. Lord Marquis Gu, as long as you will ensure Brother Yun's safety, this humble one is willing to tell you everything that I know. I know that you want to find the truth behind His Majesty's assassination. Although the people who sought me out did not clearly state their backgrounds, I do recognize their unique features. Gu Huaijiang finally spoke up after hearing this. There's no need for you two to worry. The murderer is trying to kill you to silence you. Staying in Marquis Gu's manor is the safest place for you two. As long as you can help in the investigation into His Majesty's assassination, you will be able to pay off your debt. This marquis will allow you two to keep your lives. Joy shone from the bottom of their eyes. Is Lord Marquis telling the truth? This marquis never lies. Qianliyun cupped his hands and said, though this humble one is just a lowly member of Jianghu, I have lived in the capital for a long time and have heard of Lord Marquis Gu's reputation. Lord Marquis Gu is a pillar of the court and a hero who has defended the nation. This time, the investigation into His Majesty's assassination has been carried out with even more vigor. I trust Lord Marquis. He quickly turned toward Bai Buyang and said, Brother Yang, quickly tell him everything that you know. Bai Buyang nodded, all right, I'll speak. When those people sought me out, all of them were wearing black boots that officials serving noble families wear, and they said that I would be teaching a nobleman. Though I was tempted by the promise of 1,000 taels of silver, I am not a complete fool who would casually accept a mission from complete strangers. I secretly followed them back and found that they disappeared around the eldest prince's manor. At that time, I thought that the one that they wanted me to teach was the eldest prince. Gu Shubai furrowed his brow and said, you mean to say that they were the eldest prince's people? Bai Buyang said with certainty, yes. They also had waist tags from the eldest prince's manor. Although they were expertly concealed, on their way back, it was still exposed, and I got a clear look at it. It turned out that the unique feature that he spoke of was the waist tag. Gu Shubai, however, did not respond for quite some time. Gu Hanamo said, eldest brother, what's wrong? Yu Fu knew what Gu Shubai was thinking and said, third brother, when eldest brother and I went to the imperial family's prison to see the second prince, he said that In Shuo was the one who introduced him to Bai Buyang. But now, Bai Buyang said that it was the eldest prince's people who sought him out. Aren't the two contradicting each other? No, it can't be considered a contradiction. Gu Shubai seemed to suddenly understand something. The eldest prince's people found an expert in archery like Bai Buyang, and he wanted to trick the second prince into looking for Bai Buyang on his own. That's why he had In Shuo come out and say it. In Shuo is the second prince's brother-in-law, so the second prince naturally believed him. As a result, this matter was easily taken care of. Gu Hanamo felt that this explanation was reasonable. It seems that the eldest prince is the one who is behind this matter. For the sake of accomplishing his own goals, Yin Shuo simply cooperated with him. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand. Who was the mastermind and who was simply helping is something that still needs to be investigated. We already have witnesses. Right now, the most important thing is physical evidence. Bai Buyang, the lotus flower arrows that you mentioned, were they also given to you by those people wearing the eldest prince's waist tags? Bai Buyang cupped his hands and said, yes, they're the ones who gave them to me, but they did not give them to me the first time we met. Instead, they were given to me after I left the second prince's manor for the first time. I thought that they felt that after I spent a day teaching the second prince, I would definitely understand that the second prince had no talent in martial arts and was completely incapable of learning it well, and I would only accept the lotus flower arrow if they gave it to me at that time. Gu Huaijiang stood up from his seat, and everyone followed suit. He said, stay in the manor and don't go anywhere. Have the guards protect these two and prevent the other side from sneaking in and assassinating them. This case will be solved very soon. There is just one thing missing. What is it? Qian suddenly entered from the courtyard and reported, Lord Marquis, Lin Shaoqing from the Imperial Court of Justice has come to see Lord Marquis. He says that he has something to discuss. The corners of Gu Huaijiang's lips curled up, revealing a faint smile. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Ever since finding out about His Majesty's passing, he had not smiled. His putting on this rarely seen smile today shocked everyone. Could it be that the thing that he had mentioned was with Lin Shaoqing? What? How could he have been taken away? Who took him away? The eldest prince roared like thunder. With the most important witness, Bai Buyang, being taken away, it was as if his clothes had been stripped from his body. His body trembled. He felt so exposed as if anyone could come and stab him at will. His subordinate's body was covered in injuries. Through swollen eyes, he reporting to eldest prince, who else could it be? Aside from Marquis Gu's manor's people, who would dare to oppose the eldest prince's manor? Gu Huaijiang, it was Gu Huaijiang again. When this prince ascends the throne, your head will be the first one to be chopped off. The eldest prince smashed all of the things from the table onto the ground. The sound of shattering porcelain scared the maidservant waiting outside, causing her entire body to tremble. He angrily cursed. Does he really hope to bring Ning Qingji out of prison to ascend the throne? How exactly am I worse than that good-for-nothing? Aside from my lack of a good background from my mother's side, where am I worse than him? Does he think that Ning Qingji would be a wise ruler? Impossible. The subordinate endured his anger and contemplated the situation before saying, Your Highness, now's not the time to get angry. The most pressing matter right now is to look for Prime Minister Yin to discuss a countermeasure. If Lord Marquis Gu brings Bai Buyang out as a witness in front of the court, that would be incredibly unfavorable for your highness. Yin Shuo has been more and more unreliable in his handling of things recently. He was unable to control Danyang, and even his own little sister ran away. I didn't feel this way in the past, but the more I look at him now, the more I feel he's useless. The eldest prince whined endlessly, and the more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. In the end, he still sent someone to the Prime Minister's manor. Servant, go to the Prime Minister's manor and invite Prime Minister Yin for a visit. Just say that this prince has something important to discuss with him. Your Highness, do you think that Lord Marquis Gu will keep Bai Buyang and his friend in his manor? How could this prince know? The eldest prince roared impatiently, then suddenly understood what his subordinate meant. You mean to say that since we couldn't silence him at the farm outside the city, you want to silence him inside the city? Saying this, he furrowed his brow once more. How can that be possible? Every member of the Gu family's army is elite. You were unable to succeed outside the city, yet you think that you can succeed inside the city, where there are even members of the Gu family's army patrolling the streets? The subordinate said, "We cannot, but we can have Prime Minister Yin send people to help. Even if we have to give our lives, we need to kill Bai Bu Yang and his friend. Leaving them alive is a big threat to your highness." The eldest prince joyfully said, "Good. When Yin Shuo arrives, this prince will immediately talk to him about it. Send someone to keep an eye on Marquis Gu's manor. If they see Bai Bu Yang and the others come out, immediately follow up and report." In the Prime Minister's manor, Yin Shuo received the news of Bai Bu Yang's disappearance at nearly the same time. He nodded with a smile. So quick, Gu Shubai really acts swiftly and cleanly. It's no wonder Gu Huaijiang favors him so much. His servant stood at the door. "Eldest young sir, the eldest prince has invited you to his manor. Will you be going?" Yin Shuo stood up with a smile and straightened out his clothes. "I have been prepared to go out this entire time, but it's not to the eldest prince's manor." Chapter 341 Welcome, Your Highness, Part 1. The eldest prince waited in his manor for a long time but never saw the arrival of Yin Shuo. Only a servant came to report, "Eldest prince, someone from the Prime Minister's manor came to report that Prime Minister Yin went out, and they don't know where he went. They also said that they will immediately tell Prime Minister Yin to come to the eldest prince's manor as soon as he returns. By the time that he returns, Marquis Gu will have already brought the witness before the court." The eldest prince was unable to hold back. He was already completely dissatisfied with Yin Shuo's recent failures. Who knew that he would be missing at such a critical moment? He repeatedly claimed to be someone who would serve the ruler, yet who was it that fled at the first sign of trouble? Did he think that he would be able to escape? When it came down to it, Yin Shuo was the one who came up with the idea of assassinating Emperor Ning and framing the second prince. Forget it. Send more people to the area around Marquis Gu's manor. As soon as they see Bai Bu Yang and his friend, kill them immediately. We won't wait for Yin Shuo. Yes, Your Highness. Everyone followed Gu Huaijiang back to the main hall and saw Lin Shaoqing from the Imperial Court of Justice. The latter immediately stood up to greet them. "No need for formalities, let's sit down and speak." Lin Shaoqing respectfully sat down, his face barely able to contain his joy. This lowly official specifically came to report some good news. Lord Marquis Gu had this official go and investigate the origin of the lotus flower arrow, and this official found it. He pulled out a red cloth bag from his sleeve. Carefully placed inside the bag was an arrowhead. The mechanism contained within the lotus flower arrow had already been activated, and the 8 hideous tendrils were out in the open. It was a truly horrifying sight. Lin Shaoqing held the arrow in both hands. "Lord Marquis and everyone else, please take a look. The important part of the lotus flower arrow is the mysterious mechanism. There are not many in Eastern Ling capable of making this arrow." This official sent people to various parts of Jianghu to investigate, and we finally found some clues. This arrow was made in Jiangzhou by a successor to the Mahesh teachings, MOD. Using my status as a member of the court, this official had him arrested. Only then did he finally admit that someone did indeed order a batch of lotus flower arrows from him. Gu Huaijiang said, "Who was it?" Lin Shaoqing said, "The other party did not clearly state who they were, but the lotus flower arrow is no small matter." MOD remained cautious of the other party. The other party paid him with bank notes from Jiangzhou. Based on what MOD said, the notes did not have the other party's name on them, but he found a way to ask a criminal friend of his to enter the bank and write down the names in the ledger. Gu Huaijiang nodded while running his fingers through his beard, a faint smile on his face. The people of Jianghu have their own ways. This is the case for Bai Bu Yang, and this is also the case for MOD. It's easy for people with power to keep their names off of banknotes, but the numbers on the notes will have names attached to them in the records. If this marquis guess is correct, those notes belong to someone in court. Lin Shaoqing solemnly said, "Correct, Lord Marquis, please take a look. This Jia Ji is the chief scribe in the eldest prince's manor." He handed the notes to Gu Huaijiang, and Gu Huaijiang's eyes immediately lit up. "Good, with this evidence, the truth behind His Majesty's murder will finally come to light. Lin Shaoqing, go back and write a report on the investigation in Jiangzhou, so that it can be discussed during the trial at court tomorrow." "Yes, this official will go and take care of it immediately." Bai Buyang and the lotus flower arrow. With all of this, the most important witness and material evidence were gathered. With the second prince's own testimony, the eldest prince's crime of killing father and ruler would be completely exposed. Gu Hanamo joyfully said, "Father, this is great. We can finally solve this case." The latter smiled and patted him on the shoulder. However, Gu Shubai could be seen with his head down. It seemed as if something was on his mind. Gu Huaijiang looked at him. "Shubai, what's wrong?" Yu Fu also looked at Gu Shubai. Since leaving Bai Bu Yang's place, his expression had felt a little off. It seemed as if he was worried about something, conflicted. Hearing Gu Huaijiang's question, he finally regained his composure. "I was just lost in thought. I just feel that something is a little strange." "What is it?" "All of the evidence that we have gathered seems to point us toward the eldest prince. Aside from the second prince's testimony, none of the witnesses or evidence mentions Yin Shuo. The prison and the imperial family's manor saw many people coming and going, and it was very lively. Not only did people from the Imperial Court of Justice and the Board of Punishments visit, there were also people from Marquis Gu's manor supervising this case. There were also members of the cabinet who would come to visit the second prince. All of them were people with great power and influence. In terms of their status, even the workers in the imperial family's manor needed to treat them with respect. Today, another important person came. "Everyone, serve them properly." Do you know who it was that just came in? A group of prison guards gathered outside the prison and started gossiping, with one saying curiously, "Ever since the second prince was locked up, which noble have we not seen? Is there any need to be so cautious? This is different." This was Prime Minister Yin Shuo. So what if it's Prime Minister Yin? All of the court's power is now with the cabinet. What is a prime minister worth? Though he said this, he still kept his voice down. These guards did not dare to disrespect the court. Whether the cabinet held power or the prime minister held power, the situation could change overnight. How could they possibly have a grasp on the situation? Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Their best option was to avoid offending anyone. This was also the case with the second prince. It was possible that if the case was tried fairly, he might end up the new ruler. Inside the prison, the second prince snorted with contempt. "Prime Minister Yin still remembers to come and see this prince? You're only coming to see me because Marquis Gu is about to uncover the truth behind this case, right? Vile parasite, as soon as this prince fell, you rushed to support Ning Yizhao. You even dared to hit my little sister?" As the situation surrounding the case gradually progressed, the treatment that the second prince received in prison also significantly improved. As a result, there were prison guards who would tell him about what was happening in court. Yin Shuo walked over to the table and looked at the plain chair next to it. Its surface was quite clean. It was clear there that quite a few people had been coming to see the second prince in recent days, especially people from Marquis Gu's manor and the cabinet. He sat down, and the second prince frowned but decided to simply ignore him. Yin Shuo said, "Second prince, you really are not very smart. If you were a bit smarter, I would not have needed to put in so much work." The second prince immediately became alert. "What do you mean?" Yin Shuo pointed at a chair nearby. gesturing for him to sit down for a conversation. The second prince looked him over and thought to himself that he would not dare to do anything to him inside the imperial family's manners prison, thus he casually walked over. Could it be that second prince still doesn't understand? From the very beginning, the expert that I recommended to you, Bai Bu Yang, was part of the eldest prince's plot. He was certain that you would want to stand out during the autumn hunt, thus he had Bai Bu Yang win your trust and give you the lotus flower arrows. At the hunting ground, he would then control the lotus flower to kill his majesty. Yin Shua smiled calmly, and the second prince nearly leapt up. You're finally admitting it. It was you and Ning Yi Zhao who framed me. It was you two who framed me. Guards! Come quickly. Shush, Yin Shua helplessly shook his head. Watching the guards rush in with their blades drawn, he simply shrugged. The guard at the front said, Second prince, are you all right? The second prince pointed at Yin Shua. He just admitted to killing Father Emperor. It was he and the eldest prince who worked together to kill Father Emperor. Quickly arrest him. The prison guard looked at the second prince with a troubled look before looking at Yin Shua. Yin Shua waved his hand, and the guard retreated. He turned to look at the second prince, if making empty accusations was enough to determine a person's guilt, you would already be dead. Would you even be alive to hear the results of Lord Marquis Gu's investigation? The second prince was still shaken. Thinking back to what he had just done, it had truly been reckless. He should not have called out. Even if he said it, nobody would believe him. Yin Shua might say the truth in front of him, but he would not be stupid enough to say it in front of others. He forced himself to calm down and sit back down next to Yin Shua. Then tell me, what exactly is your goal? Why are you telling me the truth? Yin Shua picked up a cup of tea. The tea in the cup had very little color and did not have much fragrance. No matter how good the tea in the imperial family's manners prison might be, it's not as good as the tea in the palace. This tea isn't even as good as the tea in my manor. He still forced himself to take a sip before putting down the cup and smiling at the second prince. Second prince, what I told you is not the whole truth. If you want to hear the whole truth, calm down a little. I will tell you everything. Don't call the guards over, or I guarantee that you will regret it. He spoke in a faint tone with a threatening demeanor. However, it did not look like he had any intention of admitting any wrongdoing. The second prince was utterly confused. He decided to follow his instructions and quietly sat down, listening to Yin Shua recount everything that happened from beginning to end. After he finished speaking, Yin Shua smiled and said, Like this, does your highness understand? The second prince's mind had been muddled into a mess by Yin Shua's words, and he was only able to organize some of his thoughts after a long pause. In a daze, he pointed at Yin Shua. You are frightening. You're truly too frightening. Yin Shua stood up and patted his robes. I have said what I came to say. During morning court tomorrow, Yin Shua will welcome your highness to the palace. Chapter 342 The Person Outside the Hall, Part 2. At morning court the next morning, Yin Shua was the last official to arrive once more. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin glanced at his empty seat with displeasure and wondered to himself why Yin Shua was deliberately delaying this. Did he think that doing this would be beneficial? He then looked into the crowd at Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai. Listening to the report from the Imperial Court of Justice, they had already found evidence that the second prince was innocent. They were just waiting for the full court session today to announce it. The eldest prince stood to the side with an ashen complexion. His tightly clenched fists were slightly trembling. Just as Senior Cabinet Minister Qin was about to step forward to speak, he suddenly saw a person outside the doors. Holding something in their hands above their head, it seemed to be some sort of report. That person slowly walked in, and everyone turned to look. Was it not Yin Shua? Prime Minister Yin, it's Prime Minister Yin. What is he doing? What is he holding? Gu Huaijiang and his son looked toward Yin Shuo, trying to guess what he was planning based on his expressions. The eldest prince anxiously looked at him, hoping that Yin Shuo's intelligence would turn the tide. The current situation was completely unfavorable for him. Last night, the people stationed outside of Marquis Gu's manor saw Bai Buyang and Qin Liyun come out. Following the eldest prince's orders, they attacked when the two were a couple of blocks away from Marquis Gu's manor. Who knew that it was a trap set by Marquis Gu's manor? The plan was to use Bai Buyang as bait to draw his people out. Now, his people had been captured by Marquis Gu's manor and become solid evidence against him. He had to come up with an extraordinary tactic to combat this. Last night, Yin Shuo did not visit the eldest prince's manor. He was surely preparing a new countermeasure. Yin Shuo held a scroll in his hands and suddenly kneeled after entering the hall, kowtowing toward the vacant imperial throne at the front of the hall. All of the officials were given a fright, not knowing what he was playing at. Prime Minister Yin Shuo stood up and handed the scroll that he was carrying to Senior Cabinet Minister Qin. This Prime Minister moves to impeach the eldest prince on the charge of killing his father and ruler and trying to frame the second prince. The relevant information is contained inside this scroll. I asked the cabinet to carefully read it over. The crowd was immediately in an uproar. Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai exchanged a glance, as they did not expect Yin Shuo would do this. The eldest prince was even more shocked, as he pointed at Yin Shuo with a trembling hand. What are you saying? You're saying that this prince? You're spouting nonsense. While his surroundings were a chaotic mess, Senior Cabinet Minister Qin opened up the scroll that Yin Shuo had given him and quickly skimmed through it. He put it down and gestured for the other officials to quiet down. Prime Minister Yin said that the second prince's archery master and the lotus flower arrow that he used were supplied by the eldest prince. The plan was to assassinate His Majesty, then frame the second prince, while you, Prime Minister Yin, were threatened into helping the eldest prince after the murder. That's why you worked at his side to collect evidence. The worries that had plagued Gu Shubai last night were suddenly resolved. He could never understand why none of the evidence that they had gathered was related to Yin Shuo. All of the evidence pointed at the eldest prince. It turned out that Yin Shuo had left himself a way out. His way out was to completely distance himself from the matter once it was exposed and then place all of the blame on the eldest prince. To leave himself a way out when committing something like regicide, this person's way of thinking was truly too frightening. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. The eldest prince looked at Yin Shuo in disbelief. What are you saying? I didn't. You must have been sent by the second prince to confuse the situation. This must be. He walked toward Yin Shuo. The imperial guards stationed outside the hall feared that he would try to injure Yin Shuo and immediately stepped forward to stop him. Pei Zheng of the Imperial Court of Justice stepped forward and pointed at the eldest prince. We have Bai Buyang and Qian Liyun, and we have evidence from MOD. They can all attest to the fact that eldest prince did indeed commit the crime of regicide. Quickly arrest the eldest prince. Don't allow him to hurt Prime Minister Yin. The officials were even more shocked upon hearing this. The tribunal had reached a conclusion. The real culprit behind the ruler's murder was the eldest prince. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin said, Lord Pei, quickly bring out the testimony. Where has the witness gone? Pei Zheng brought out the testimony and cupped his hands toward Gu Huaijiang. This case was resolved thanks to Lord Marquis Gu's assistance. Before the eldest prince's subordinates could accomplish their mission of silencing the witnesses, they were able to bring back Bai Buyang and Qian Liyun. The Imperial Court of Justice's investigation uncovered the one who made the lotus flower arrows, MOD. Their testimony pointed to the eldest prince as being the true culprit. Gu Huaijiang nodded slightly but did not say anything. Nonsense. You dare to detain this prince on the basis of what some uncivilized members of Jianghu said. Unhand me. The eldest prince tried to break free, however, the imperial guards did not give him a chance, restraining him such that he could not even move. The cabinet members read the testimonies, and Pei Jing smiled. Naturally, it's not just testimonies. There's also evidence. A group of killers tried to kill Bai Bu Yang and Qin Li Yun at a farm on the city's outskirts yesterday. Fortunately, Marquis Gu's heir arrived at a timely manner. At that time, half of the attackers were killed and another half fled. All that remained at that site were corpses, and they have been confirmed to be the eldest prince's subordinates by servants at eldest prince's manor. What? The eldest prince was a little flustered. How could the people at my manor be so confused and speak so wantonly? I never sent anyone to kill Bai Bu Yang. I never commissioned him, so why would I want to silence him? Pei Jing said. Then the assassins that were sent to assassinate Bai Bu Yang at Marquis Gu's manor, they must not be eldest prince's people. The eldest prince was shaken. He knew that if this matter was uncovered by others, it would be used against him, but he never thought that it would truly happen. He angrily looked at Yin Shuo. If not for Yin Shuo defecting partway through, he would still have a chance to fight. However, nothing he said now would matter. Gu Shubai's gaze shifted from Yin Shuo and looked outside the hall. Outside the hall, a person who had just been given instructions quickly entered the hall. Chapter 343 The Truth Exposed, Part 3. It was Bai Bu Yang, Qin Li Yun, and MOD. Right now, the most important matter was not whether or not Yin Shuo would be able to avoid responsibility for his crimes, it was getting the truth. Gu Shubai said to the three, the assassination of His Majesty is not a trivial matter. You three are of a lowly background. Just relying on your testimony would not be enough. That's why I brought you to the imperial palace for you to tell everyone the truth. The three cupped their hands and recounted everything that happened. With everyone's fragmented story was pieced together, the full truth was uncovered. When MOD brought out the banknote that had Jia Ji's name written on it, there was no longer any doubt. He is the head historian of the eldest prince's manor. If it wasn't the eldest prince who wanted the lotus flower arrow, why would he have someone from his manor pay the craftsman? With everything starting to become clear, the eldest prince had no chance to deny it. However, Gu Shubai was unable to feel happy. Did they really have no choice but to allow Yin Shuo avoid being implicated? The eldest prince was arrested by the imperial guards. His arms and legs were restrained, and his head drooped. He was being judged by everyone's gazes and being held in contempt. Since time immemorial, there were many examples of sons killing their fathers and rulers, but when it came to ascending the throne, only the victor would be venerated. For him, as someone who had lost, he would be stigmatized and looked at with scorn for thousands of years. He suddenly raised his head. I did all of this because I was influenced by Yin Shuo. It was because he wanted to seize power from the cabinet that he sought me out to assassinate Father Emperor. It was him. As the eldest prince spoke, everyone turned to look at Yin Shuo. Between the two, one said that it was the eldest prince who had threatened him, and one said that it was Yin Shuo that had influenced him. It was hard to say which was true. The eldest prince was completely hysterical, while Yin Shuo's expression remained calm. He turned to look at the eldest prince and said with a smile, "Understand very well that eldest prince wants to pull someone down with him. When I decided to pretend to help eldest prince, I was resolved to give up my life." He then looked at Senior Cabinet Minister Qin. In this great hall, I pretended to struggle for power with the cabinet for the sake of gaining eldest prince's trust. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin, think about it. If I really wanted to fight for power, would I have given you the power so easily? The cabinet had not yet been established, so it could have been torn down with just a few plans. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin did not look at him, and Inshua turned to look at the other officials. When I struck Princess Danyang in this hall, the pain that it caused her also caused my heart to ache. But if I did not do this, I would have no way of winning the eldest prince's trust. It was the only way for me to gather enough evidence of his murder of his father and ruler. Everyone, could it be that you thought that I, Inshua, would really be so frivolous as to dare to strike the princess of our Easternling in this hall? With him saying this, the officials felt like there was a bit of logic to this. Only Gu Huaijiang and his son knew the truth behind this and that this was a complete lie. If Inshua had only struck Princess Danyang as a last resort, why would he have her placed under house arrest in the eastern courtyard, and why would he set a trap for Gu Hanamo? Gu Shubai thought back to everyone's testimony and all of the evidence. A flash of light went off in his mind, as he recalled a flaw in Inshua's argument. He stepped forward and said, "If what Prime Minister said is true, Bai Buyang said that it was the eldest prince's people who sought him out to teach archery to the second prince, but the second prince's testimony said that it was Prime Minister Yin who told him to seek out Bai Buyang. How can this be resolved?" The Ministry of Punishments, the Imperial Court of Justice, the members of the imperial family's manor, and the cabinet ministers had all seen the second prince's testimony. It was not just them, as all of the court officials had taken a look into this case, whether it was done openly or in secret. After all, the second prince had testified many times, so it was very easy for them to check this. With Gu Shubai saying this, the officials finally remembered that the second prince had indeed said that it was Inshua who had told him to seek out Bai Buyang. Did this prove that Inshua was lying and that he had been working with the eldest prince from the start? Inshua had no way of answering Gu Shubai's questioning. But the one who should respond to this question was not him. This prince's testimony does indeed say that it was Inshua who recommended Bai Buyang to me. A voice suddenly came from outside the hall, and everyone turned to look. They saw the second prince walk in. With his shackles, he looked very imposing. The corners of Inshua's lips curled up, and he slowly lowered his head. The second prince cast a fierce glance at the eldest prince and then said to the officials, "Everyone knows that Prime Minister Yin is married to this prince's younger sister. He only recommended me to Bai Buyang because he hoped that I would be able to have a good showing in front of Father Emperor. In truth, he never met Bai Buyang. He only knew that this person was skilled in archery. Who knew that eldest imperial brother knew about it and secretly arranged for someone to seek out Bai Buyang? Bai Buyang just stood in the middle of the hall. Upon hearing the second prince's words, he nodded. It had been the eldest prince's people who had sought him out. As for Inshua recommending him to the second prince, he did not know about this. Gu Shubai said, "Second prince, how do you know about who sought out Bai Buyang?" The second prince said, "It was Prime Minister Yin who told this prince. In truth, he was always helping this prince. Everything that he did with the eldest prince was for the sake of today. More importantly, Bai Buyang is here. Shouldn't it be very clear who sought him out?" Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Everyone turned to look at Bai Buyang, and the latter clenched his fists and bowed. I followed those people back, and they did indeed enter the eldest prince's manor before disappearing. Also, some of them were wearing waist tags that belonged to the eldest prince's manor. Now, everyone understood. It seemed that the eldest prince did indeed seek out Bai Buyang to trap the second prince and then use the lotus flower arrow to assassinate his majesty. The eldest prince angrily pointed at Bai Buyang, "You're lying. This prince has never seen you before. How could I have sent anyone to look for you?" This prince only heard Inshua mention that he had found someone skilled in archery to deceive the second prince. I had no clue who this person even was. Inshua laughed and said, "If it really is as eldest prince says, and I was the one who sought out Bai Buyang, and I was the one who framed the second prince, why is it that eldest prince was the one who sought to have Bai Buyang killed?" Why were the ones waiting to assassinate Bai Bu Yang outside of Marquis Gu's manor also eldest prince's people? If I sought out Bai Bu Yang, should I be the one in a hurry to silence him? His answer was completely flawless. The eldest prince froze and then suddenly started laughing. The crowd was shocked, as they wondered to themselves if the eldest prince had gone crazy. The eldest prince looked up toward the heavens and laughed, "Yin Shuo, the great Yin Shuo. It's no wonder you've been more and more useless recently, leaving things like killing Bai Bu Yang and other such matters to me. It turns out that you've been thinking of backing off. You already made up your mind to sell out this prince to save yourself. Yin Shuo, oh Yin Shuo, you're so full of resentment towards Marquis Gu's manor, but now that Marquis Gu has returned, haven't you become docile again?" Ha ha ha. Gu Huaijiang furrowed his brow but did not say anything. Yin Shuo glanced at him with a smile on his face. He turned to look at the eldest prince. "I, Yin Shuo, naturally have my own considerations, however, I am not afraid of Marquis Gu's manor. As the second prince's brother-in-law, I naturally trust him more. Fortunately, I did not make a mistake." Sure enough, the second prince did not assassinate His Majesty. It was you, eldest prince. Alright, there's no need to deal with his nonsense. He just wants to drag someone else down with him, so why don't you drag this prince down? The second prince mockingly looked at the eldest prince, giving a signal to the imperial guards. "Why haven't you come and removed this prince's shackles?" The soldiers immediately stepped forward and removed the shackles from his body. The eldest prince's guilt had been determined. The truth behind the second prince being framed had come to light. The ruler at the top and the prisoner below, the positions between the two had instantly been flipped. Gu Shubai still wanted to speak, but Gu Huaijiang reached out to stop him, whispering into his ear, "The second prince already completely trusts Yin Shuo. In addition to this, all of the ones that he views as having contributed are standing by his side. You must not be rash." Gu Shubai had never felt as rash as he did now. They had worked so hard to finally uncover some clues and find witnesses and evidence, but in the case of His Majesty's assassination, it seemed that they were about to gain a complete victory. However, at the last moment, Yin Shuo managed to clear his name and even stole all of the credit. He did not care about the credit. What he cared about was the whole truth. As long as one of the culprits was still at large, this could not be considered the truth. Emperor Ning would not be able to rest in peace. He desperately wanted to bring Yin Shuo to justice but could not. In front of all of these officials, he was smiling. He was pretending as if there was nothing wrong. With his shackles removed, the second prince turned to Gu Huaijiang, Ji Daogong, and Senior Cabinet Minister Chen and saluted. "Many thanks for maintaining your impartiality, remaining dedicated to the truth, and providing this prince with justice. Also, thank you for allowing Father Emperor to rest in peace. Also, Yin Shuo, there's no need for thanks between us." The second prince looked at Yin Shuo with a warm gaze, and this look his eyes caused Gu Shubai to feel tormented. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin was a little disappointed. He did not know if Yin Shuo was truly innocent or not, but it was clear that the second prince believed in his innocence more than he was thankful for the cabinet. The second prince would soon become the new ruler. At that time, when it came to this incomplete cabinet, would it be able to survive? Chapter 344 Wang Shi drowns herself extra. With the second prince's order, the eldest prince was detained in the imperial prison. Compared to where the second prince had been detained, as someone who had committed the crime of killing father and ruler, the treatment that he received was far worse. Everyone looked at him as if he was a stray dog or a wild rodent, and they were all too eager to beat him to death. Even he had lost any will to fight. Since he had made that sort of choice back then, he was prepared for today's outcome. The only thing that he felt any resentment over was that Yin Shuo had chosen to wash his hands of the matter. In Qinghua Palace, the flowers were in full bloom. A noble lady in palace attire collapsed at the bottom of some stairs, her red brocade dress contrasted with her pale complexion. "Lost, my son actually lost, Your Highness." A palace maid knelt on the ground, neither daring to step forward to help her up nor daring to say any words to comfort her. No matter what was said, it would all be pointless. The eldest prince had already been locked up in the imperial prison, and all of the civil and military officials in court recognized his guilt. He was completely powerless. It was likely that someone would soon remember the eldest prince's birth mother, and someone would be sent to apprehend her. Imperial consort Xian lay on the cold marble with a false smile on her face. She pressed her face against the ground. "My son lost. There's no longer any chance of him winning." The palace maid, who had been serving at her side for a long time, was on the verge of tears at this sight. She did not know whether she was heartbroken for Imperial consort Xian's poor spirits or if she was crying because she would also be dragged down by their downfall. Imperial consort Xian listened to the sobbing and just stared wide-eyed, as all sorts of images drifted through her mind. She remembered when she first entered the palace. She had been wearing a blue jacket and skirt. Standing in a group of beautiful girls, she did not stand out. However, Emperor Ning had chosen her. He said that the moment he first saw her, he felt that she had a gentle bearing and would surely become a virtuous imperial consort. Eventually, she would bear Emperor Ning his eldest son, and every member of the imperial harem looked at her with fear. Although the late empress occupied the central palace, she would envy her in the dead of night. When the eldest prince was 3 or 4 years old and in good health, Emperor Ning conferred her the title of imperial consort Xian, making her second in the imperial harem behind only the empress. Her luck was great. In her second year, the empress had given birth to a son, but he died of sickness not long after, and the inner palace treated imperial consort Xian as its leader. These vivid memories of her and Emperor Ning behaving like a loving couple flashed through her mind. They had enjoyed so many years of peaceful harmony between them. Now, it had been completely ruined. Emperor Ning was dead, and her son had become a rebel. As someone who had aided him, she would not be able to avoid being implicated. She closed her eyes, and hot tears fell to the marble floor before quickly turning to ice. The sound of urgent footsteps came from outside, as a eunuch rushed in. "Your Highness, Your Highness. It's bad. The Imperial Guards have come to arrest Your Highness." The palace maids in the hall were rushing about frantically, while Imperial consort Xian suddenly opened her eyes and slowly stood up with the help of the palace maid at her side. "Arrest me. This one is the one responsible for managing the inner palace and is the eldest prince's birth mother. Who would dare touch this one?" Saying this, she quickly pushed away the palace maid's hand, lifted the hem of her dress, and then ran toward the backyard. Nobody dared to stop her, and nobody knew where she was going. The Imperial Guards surged into Qinghua Palace with a decree from the cabinet. "By decree of the cabinet, we have come to arrest Imperial consort Xian, Wang Shi, for aiding the eldest prince in the assassination of His Majesty." The palace maids trembled in fear and pointed toward the backyard. "Her Highness." As she ran that way, the Imperial Guards immediately gave chase and searched the entirety of the backyard. However, they did not see any signs of Imperial consort Xian. Where could a noble lady without any martial arts training have hidden? One of the guards saw a well in the backyard and found it a bit suspicious. Stepping forward to take a look, he immediately let out a shocked cry. "Wang Shi is here." She threw herself into the well. The court officials had not yet dispersed, and the eldest prince's guilt had already been determined. The only important matter left was the enthronement of the new ruler. If it was not the eldest prince, it was the second prince. One was a ruler-killing traitor, while the other was the new ruler. There was absolutely no suspense. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin cupped his hands toward the sky. "Now that the truth has come to light, His Majesty will be able to rest in peace." Right now, the most pressing matter is to enthrone the new ruler and carry out His Majesty's funeral. That will keep His Majesty from being kept in Baohua Palace on his own. Everyone turned to look at the second prince. The eldest prince was now in prison, so whether it was seniority, talent, prestige, or hope, none could oppose the second prince. There was absolutely no suspense to this. Gu Shubai suddenly remembered what Yu Fu had said. She said that if not for committing regicide, the eldest prince becoming the new ruler would have been the better choice. The second prince was stupid and ignorant, being swayed by Yin Shuo with just a few words. Would this sort of person be a wise ruler? He furrowed his brow and was dismayed at the scene unfolding at the front of the court. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. While investigating Emperor Ning's assassination, he had worked earnestly and only thought of finding the truth to allow Emperor Ning to rest in peace. But now that he had succeeded, with the eldest prince being imprisoned and the second prince about to be enthroned, he could not feel any joy. He looked at Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang's face did not show much emotion. He had many years of experience in court and had learned long ago now to show any emotion. Just as the officials were falling over themselves to crown the second prince the new ruler, Gu Huaijiang cupped his hands, for something as important as selecting a new ruler. Since ancient times, military officials have not participated in political affairs. This matter shall be left to the cabinet and my lords to decide. This marquis will take these witnesses and find them suitable places to stay. I will be bidding farewell first. Marquis Gu, why are you leaving like this? Senior Cabinet Minister Chen personally stepped forward to have him stay. What is this about military officials not participating in political affairs? Aside from being a military official, Lord Marquis also holds the title of Marquis and is an honorable member of this court. More importantly, if not for Lord Marquis' efforts in the investigation into His Majesty's assassination, we might not have been able to find the truth. Quite a few officials also chimed in, that's right. This case could not have been solved without Lord Marquis. There's no need to refuse. How could something as important as the enthronement of a new ruler be done without Lord Marquis? Gu Huaijiang, however, was very resolute. This Marquis joined in the investigation into His Majesty's assassination was a result of there being no better option. His Majesty treated this Marquis very well, and this Marquis had to return that favor to His Majesty. Now that the situation in court has been cleared up, the cabinet will be able to handle the enthronement of the new ruler. This Marquis will be leaving first. After saying this, he turned and left with Gu Shubai closely following behind him. Both father and son had made great contributions, yet they took a step back at this critical moment. They made it hard for people to try and guess what they were thinking. The corners of Yin Shuo's lips curled into a sneer, while the second prince's eyes looked uncertain. Who knew what he was feeling? If the one who had been engaged to Danyang was Gu Shubai, he would surely have been able to keep Gu Huaijiang at this time. After all, his in-laws were the ones he could rely on the most. Unfortunately, Gu Shubai did not marry Danyang. This meant that Marquis Gu's Manor's army would always be a threat to him, especially after he ascended the throne. The only person he could rely on now was his brother-in-law, the Prime Minister who had provided evidence against the eldest prince at a critical moment and the one who was related to him by marriage. If not for his efforts in working undercover against the eldest prince, how could it have been so easy to get the evidence against him? Senior Cabinet Minister Qin watched Gu Huaijiang and his son depart before returning to the top of the steps and clearing his throat. He was worried about Yin Shuo, but the second prince was the best choice to become the new ruler. This was an unchangeable truth. After much thought, he loudly said, His Majesty did not have many sons. Discarding the patricidal and regicidal eldest prince, the second prince is the eldest prince of the remaining princes, and he is the only son born of the late empress. More importantly, with Marquis Gu personally verifying it, before His Majesty passed away, he previously mentioned appointing the second prince as the crown prince. When it comes to talent and ability, the second prince is the only one qualified to become the new ruler. What do my fellow officials think? The other officials agreed with this. Good, the second prince is both talented and virtuous. It's natural that he should become the new ruler. That's right, the second prince is the one with the noblest background of all the princes. It's natural that this would be the case. We all support the second prince becoming the new ruler. Second prince, please do not refuse and quickly ascend the throne to preside over His Majesty's funeral. The second prince had not heard such complimentary words in a long time. Hearing them now, he felt comfortable and at ease. Shua stood at his side with that same faint smile as before. Who knew what he was thinking? Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai quickly exited the palace. Their footsteps were resolute but also extremely dejected. Bai Buyang and the others followed them at a distance. They seemed to notice something but did not dare speak out of turn. Father, I feel that I still let His Majesty down and let down the citizens of Eastern Ling. Gu Huaijiang suddenly stopped and turned to look at Gu Shubai. Foolish child, this isn't your fault. Even if His Majesty was let down, I, Gu Huaijiang, who let him down. It isn't the fault of the younger generation. Gu Shubai quickly said, No, father. When you stopped Sun in the hall earlier, you were right. Shua's accusation was very effective. The second prince has already been completely swayed by him. If I had been rash at that time and brought up Shua's guilt without any evidence, it would not be trusted by anyone. He paused for a moment, but father, with this sort of person winning the second prince's trust and becoming the new ruler's most trusted minister, would they really not cause harm to the innocent? Chapter 345 2 months later, Part 2. 2 months later, the new year arrived. This winter was much colder than last year's winter. As the later emperor's coffin was carried to the imperial mausoleum, the capital was left in a state of mourning. The sight of the most tragic sobs came from the eldest prince's manor. The eldest prince's main consort passed away early, and her spot was never filled. In the manor, only a secondary consort, 2 concubines, and a young imperial child cried for the eldest prince's soul. To say that they were crying for his soul would not be accurate. The eldest prince would be escorted to the entrance of the food market and executed today. It was thanks to intervention from Lord Marquis Gu that none of the women or children of the eldest prince's manor would suffer the same fate. It was just that they were sentenced by the new ruler to be confined to the eldest prince's manor. As people related to the traitor, they would not be allowed to move freely, and they were reduced to being on the same level as servants or slaves. The eldest prince's transport carriage passed by the front of the manor, and a group of women supported each other, as they wanted to send him off one last time. Go back, go back. You guilty slaves, who allowed you to move around as you please? The soldiers guarding the entrance were particularly domineering. With a swing of their blade, the consorts immediately moved to protect the young boy. The eldest prince sat in the carriage with a wooden expression. He coldly watched his wives and son get beaten without saying a single word. He knew that these guards had been sent to the eldest prince's manor by Ning Qingji. As long as he showed the slightest reaction, they would be even happier to beat his family members. Their goal was to make him suffer. He could not move. He could not speak. If he did speak, it would cause them more trouble. The women's desperate cries grated the ears. One of the guards saw that the eldest prince was expressionless and decided to lift the little boy up high. Don't, I beg you to spare the little imperial grandson. The secondary consort and the concubines were loyal and desperately to preserve the eldest prince's bloodline. Crying, they pleaded with the soldier to put the child down. The soldier found their cries to be pleasing. What imperial grandson? Ning Yizhao killed his father and ruler, completely removing himself from the imperial family. Can his son be considered an imperial grandson? He might as well be smashed on the ground and killed. Consort Mother Lu, save me. Consort Mother Lu, save me. The child cried and pleaded, while secondary consort Lu Shi tried to pull the child away. Unfortunately, she was unable to go against the strong soldier, and this caused the surrounding soldiers to laugh. As his secondary consort, Lu Shi was the daughter of a court official. She had never suffered such humiliation before, and her face instantly turned red. The eldest prince looked up at the child in the soldier's hands. The child was still young, and he was pitiful for losing both his mother and father. After he died, it was probable that his child would not be able to keep his life. That Ning Qingji, how could he possibly allow his bloodline to continue? Even when imperial consort Xian had drowned herself in the well, he had to strip her of her title before she died. He ordered that she not be allowed to be buried in the imperial mausoleum. She was not even allowed to have a proper funeral, and her corpse was thrown into a mass grave. Thinking of how the family that he had formed would be broken up after he passed, tears of remorse flowed from the corners of the eldest prince's eyes. The soldier holding the child up high looked at secondary consort Lu Shi and said, "If you kneel and wipe this great one's shoes clean, this great one will let this bastard down." Lu Shi was shocked. Looking at the crying child, her heart stirred. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. This child was the eldest prince's son with consort Jing, his official wife. Over the years, she had been raising him and thought of him as her own flesh and blood. If she did not kneel, could it be that she would need to watch the eldest prince's only child die? She took a step forward, and just as she was about to kneel, a concubine hastily stepped forward to stop her. "Your Highness must not allow this concubine to take your place." The loyal concubine had not finished speaking before being kicked away by the soldier. "What sort of lowly slut are you? What opportunity do you have to take her place? If it isn't her, it's not worth getting my shoes cleaned." The concubine fell to the ground and coughed up a mouthful of blood. When the soldier was about to kick her a few more times, he suddenly heard a rush of wind, as the wind sent some snow flying through the manor's gates. He was stunned. A yellow carriage with an imperial emblem came along with a procession of well-trained soldiers following behind it. All of them looked very valiant. Though the soldiers did not know which noble this carriage belonged to, they knew that they should step forward and salute, kneeling next to the carriage. The curtain was lifted, and a young maidservant in beautiful clothes stepped out. It was evident just how noble her master must be. Just as he was about to speak, the maidservant stepped on his face, using him as a step to climb out of the carriage. Before His Majesty had been enthroned, he had worked as the personal guard of the second prince's manor. How could he be trampled on like this? Just as the soldier was about to act up, he suddenly saw a beautiful young girl stand up inside the carriage. Wearing a moon-white dress, she made the beautiful red furnishings look plain. Wearing plain clothes, she was showing her filial piety. The girl before him was surely a member of the imperial family. The maidservant reached out a hand and helped her out of the carriage. This time, the soldier obediently allowed himself to be used as a step, allowing her to steadily climb out of the carriage. This subordinate greets Princess Zhenjiang and pays respects to Princess. There was no need to look at the name on the emblem to know who she was. In the capital, aside from Princess Zhenjiang, who else could the noblest young girl be? Not even His Majesty's younger sister, Princess Danyang, was this beautiful, nor was she as respected. Yu Fu turned to glance at the soldier and smiled. The soldier was dazed by her smile and just stupidly smiled in reply but was suddenly given a slap. Chapter 346 The Condition is to Marry You, Part 3. Yalan was young, but her slap was not lacking in strength, impudence. You dare to look directly at the princess. The soldiers from the Gu family's army that were accompanying the carriage rushed forward and pointed their swords at the impudent soldier. The latter wet himself in terror and kneeled for forgiveness. "Princess, spare me. Princess, spare me. This subordinate won't dare to do it again. This subordinate is His Majesty's personal guard. I beg Princess to spare this subordinate's life on His Majesty's account." Yaolong coldly snorted, "If you're His Majesty's personal guard, you should know just how much His Majesty dotes on our princess, yet you dare to offend her. Breaking the law despite knowing it is even worse." The soldier kowtowed repeatedly in fear, and Yaolong looked at Yu Fu. The corners of the latter's lips slightly curled up. "You may rise. If you want this princess to not blame you, it's quite easy. This princess is kind-hearted and gentle, and I absolutely despise seeing women and children get bullied. Get up and ask my guards. Would they raise their hands and beat women and children?" The soldiers from the Gu family's army loudly replied, "Good men should fight on the battlefield. What skill is shown from bullying women and children?" Their clear response left the others feeling ashamed. The ones who had been referring to themselves as His Majesty's personal guards were instantly left too afraid to speak. Standing before the almost mythical Gu family's army, they felt as if they were not strong enough. The secondary consort, Lu Shi, tightly held the child and blankly looked at Yu Fu. It was only now that she realized that Princess Zhenjiang had come to support them. It had already been 2 months since the fall of the eldest prince's manor. Even her maiden family, the Lu family, was unable to do anything, as nobody dared to offend the new ruler and help them. Who knew that the one to help them would be Princess Zhenjiang? The kneeling soldier immediately understood Yu Fu's intention. "This subordinate thanks Princess for the teaching. This subordinate will definitely learn well from Princess' personal guards and will never dare to bully women and children ever again." Saying this, he waved behind him, "It's snowing. Quickly bring Her Highnesses and the young imperial grandson in to keep them out of the snow." His subordinates respectfully invited Lu Shi back inside, and the concubines helped support the injured concubine back into the courtyard. Before the gate was closed, Lu Shi glanced at Yu Fu one last time. It was a look of gratitude, and Yu Fu nodded to her to reassure her. She then smiled and said, "You can get up. I have something to say to him. In the end, we are still brother and sister, so I should send him off. Don't you think so too?" The soldier stood up and agreed with everything the beauty said. "Yes, yes, yes, it should be done. Princess, please go ahead. Just don't delay the execution that is to occur at noon." Yaolong pulled out a pouch of silver and gave a silver ingot to the soldier. Yu Fu nodded, "Don't worry, this place is close to the food market. It definitely won't cause you any trouble." She walked toward the prison carriage. The heavy snow fell on the carriage. Since the carriage did not have a roof, the snow landed directly on the eldest prince. He shuddered involuntarily. Seeing Yu Fu walk over, he was barely able to support his own body but still tried to kowtow to Yu Fu. "Brother Yizhao, there has never been a need for such grand gestures before. Can we keep things as they were before?" The eldest prince looked up at Yu Fu in a daze. The year had ended, and the girl was now 14. Coming of age, she had become even more beautiful. With her smiling eyes and charming dimples, anyone who saw her would like her. It was no wonder someone as emotionless as Ning Qingji would like Yu Fu, sending her all manners of precious gifts. His voice was choked up, "Sister Yu Fu, thank you for today. With the state that I have fallen to, nobody dares to intervene, so I will thank you for saving my child's life." Yu Fu removed a jade pendant from her waist. "There's no need for thanks. This is all that I can do. Wasn't the jade pendant that you gave me back then priceless? Let's treat today as me paying you back." The eldest prince smiled bitterly. With her noble status, was there anything that Yu Fu could want but not have? A measly jade trinket from the imperial family was likely nothing to her. This was just an excuse for her to help and allow him to leave with a little less to worry about. When a person was about to die, they became more eloquent. Suddenly, the eldest prince really wanted to say a few words to her. I killed my father and ruler. Do you not hate me? For me to have fallen to my current situation is fitting for my crime. Did you know? Since the hunting ground, I have often had nightmares. In those nightmares, I saw Father Emperor come to take my life. He looked toward the red gates of the eldest prince's manor and said with a frown, Today, I will finally be free, but for them. I fear that they will have to endure more hardships. Yu Fu said, The late emperor treated me very well. Naturally, I did not want to part with him, but I also know that you cannot bear all of the guilt for the assassination of the ruler. Back then, you also treated me very well and treated the people of Marquis Gu's manor very well. That was fake. I only treated you well to gain the support of Marquis Gu's manor. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. The eldest prince spoke earnestly from the bottom of his heart. With how wretched he had been, he would rather see Yu Fu leave in disgust than stand here and help him, which was making him feel even more embarrassed. Yu Fu smiled. Good treatment is good treatment. What does it matter if it was real or fake? I know that you wanted to gain the head general's support, but you truly did take very good care of me. Do you still remember? When Auntie wanted to cause me trouble, it was fortunate that you sent someone with a report to relieve me of my crisis. The eldest prince remembered that after that tensions between Yu Fu and Madame Su were eased, and he could not help but laugh. Only you could remember something so trivial. Yu Fu, if there is a next life, I wish to earnestly treat you well. He had never been this honest and certain as he was right now. Yu Fu smiled at him. There will be. In your next life, you and I might be true brother and sister. You can treat me well for my entire life, all right? The eldest prince wiped away the tears under his eyes and looked at the soldier standing guard nearby. Following this, he moved closer to Yu Fu. He was almost pressing his entire face against the prisoner transport carriage, as he lowered his voice. Yu Fu, I don't know if someone who is as vile as me will have another life. If there is, I will definitely take very good care of you, but right now, I have something more important to tell you. Yu Fu also leaned closer, allowing the eldest prince to speak a little easier. What is it? Ning Qingji, that idiot, has absolute faith in Yin Shuo. The other members of court also have faith in Yin Shuo, but you absolutely must understand that Yin Shuo is not a good person. He used my attempted poisoning of Father Emperor to threaten me. With that, I had no choice but to go through with it. If I did not do it, he would have revealed it, and I would have been in the exact same situation. After the eldest prince finished speaking, he saw that Yu Fu did not look particularly surprised. Don't worry. We already know about this. Unfortunately, none of the evidence pointed at Yin Shuo. We already knew about the poisoning from the very beginning. We were the ones who asked Master to pretend not to care about the political situation to hide it. The eldest prince smiled bitterly and said, You already knew. You already knew yet did not tell Father Emperor. It turns out that Ning Qingji isn't the only stupid one. I'm also very stupid. I actually believed Yin Shuo's incitement and feared that you would tell Father Emperor about it. Father Emperor, I'm sorry. He was practically shouting toward the sky. The surrounding soldiers looked at him and watched the eldest son of the imperial family in his final moments. Yu Fu looked around then said to him, If you have anything else to say, say it now. I can only send you off up to here. You need to walk the rest of the way on your own. The eldest prince slowly fell silent. There's nothing else. Just be careful of Yin Shuo. All of us have fallen for his scheme and have all been under his control. At first, I thought that he was turning on me when the facts of the case were starting to come to light, but thinking on it now, all of this seems to have been his plan from the very start. Yu Fu furrowed her brow. You mean to say that he always intended for the second prince to ascend the throne but deliberately pretended to help you? The eldest prince sneered. Aside from this, I can't think of any other explanation. Think about it. Yin Shuo is someone capable of marrying Danyang for the sake of power. How could he possibly treat Danyang well and not want to get revenge after she humiliated him? This is not at all like Yin Shuo. He knew that once I ascended the throne, I would not have tolerated him. Only that idiot, Ning Qingji, would think that being connected by marriage would placate Yin Shuo. Sooner or later, Eastern Ling will fall to ruin at Yin Shuo's hands. Yu Fu let out a long sigh. All right, I will tell the head general and eldest brother about what you said. Brother Yizhao, may we meet again in the next life. The prison transport carriage left 2 deep tracks in the snow. Without anyone noticing, a thick layer of snow had accumulated. Yu Fu stood in front of the eldest prince's manor and watched the eldest prince's carriage depart. Yao Lan supported her from the side and quietly said, "Young miss, why bother speaking nicely to those rude guards? You are a princess. Wouldn't it be fine to just order them to treat the members of the eldest prince's manor well?" Yu Fu did not look at her. It's up to the owner to punish their dogs. Right now, that person would be the second prince. How could I possibly act so domineering? I also want to teach them a lesson, but teaching them a lesson would be bad for the eldest prince's family. You also saw how affectionate those women were, and that child was innocent. If the soldiers were punished, those women would be the ones to suffer from them venting their frustration. Yao Lan draped a white fox fur cloak on her, and Yu Fu let out a sigh. His Majesty favors and trusts Prime Minister Yin. It's highly likely that he will discard the cabinet and rely entirely on the Prime Minister. Marquis Gu's manor does not occupy as high of a position with His Majesty as it did with the late Emperor. We cannot be willful and cause trouble for head general. Yes, I will remember this. It's fortunate that the soldier was only given a slap earlier. Just as master and servant were about to return to their carriage, they suddenly heard the eldest prince shout at the top of his lungs from the distance, "You must be wary of him. His condition for working with me was to marry you. You must be careful." Yu Fu was stunned, her raised foot freezing in midair. Chapter 347. Why not finish what you were saying? Part 1. Returning to Marquis Gu's manor, a group of palace servants was gathered outside. They were all carrying gifts into the manor. Seeing Yu Fu return, Eunuch Qi came over to greet her and pay his respects. This servant pays respects to Princess Zhenjiang. Where did Princess go on a snowy day like today? Eunuch Qi was previously a member of the second prince's manor. Now that the second prince was the emperor, he became the new head of palace staff. As for the previous head of palace staff, Eunuch Gao, because he had testified in court that the late emperor had intended to appoint the second prince as crown prince, he had also been rewarded, with large quantities of gold, silver, and silks being sent to his hometown. Yu Fu still preferred Eunuch Gao. The 2 eunuchs both treated Yu Fu very kindly, but Eunuch Gao did not toady up to her like this eunuch. She just found this to be distasteful. It did not matter how much she disliked him. Yu Fu understood that the subject would be like their ruler. "So it was Eunuch Qi. Did you come to deliver New Year's gifts on His Majesty's behalf?" "I didn't go anywhere in particular. I just went out for a stroll." Yu Fu summoned some energy to deal with him, and Eunuch Qi smiled and said, "Princess has guessed wrong. This servant did not come to deliver New Year's gifts on His Majesty's behalf but to deliver gifts to the princess. His Majesty said that the princess is so beautiful that only the best accessories in the world suit her. That's why all of the best accessories from the tribute sent by the small islands and countries nearby were delivered to the princess." Yu Fu looked at what the palace servants were carrying. Each and every item was some sort of accessory. When piled together, they would form a small hill. She forced a smile and said, "His Majesty orders gifts to be delivered to me every few days. In the end, I am not His Majesty's true sister. How could I dare to act like I am? His Majesty should pay a little more attention to Princess Danyang. She is His Majesty's true younger sister." Eunuch Qi suddenly smiled. His shrill laughter made Yu Fu's head hurt. He covered his mouth with a handkerchief. "What is Princess talking about?" Princess was personally conferred the title of Princess by the late Emperor. Who would dare to say that you are not his true younger sister? If you were his true younger sister, His Majesty would not dote on you this much. Eunuch Qi quietly examined Yu Fu. Seeing her dressed in plain clothes with a white fox fur cloak, she looked like a deity who had descended. It was no wonder His Majesty could not stop thinking and talking about her. In truth, His Majesty also worries about Princess Danyang. It's just that Princess Danyang does not like going into the palace, and even if this servant was to go and deliver her gifts, she would not come and see this servant. It's because of this that His Majesty gradually lost interest and just started giving gifts directly to Prime Minister Yin. That's not all. After this servant finishes delivering the gifts to Princess, I will need to go and deliver New Year's gifts to the Prime Minister's manor. Yu Fu complained to herself. Whether it was Princess Danyang who did not want to go into the palace, or was it Yin Shuo who did not allow her to go into the palace, Ning Qingji had never actually questioned it. He actually trusted Yin Shuo to such a degree. New Year's gift. Yu Fu was a little surprised. That's right. It's already the 15th of the 12th month. His Majesty has always given New Year's gifts to the esteemed officials early. This is a tradition that has been kept from the late Emperor's rule. In previous years, Marquis Gu's manor would receive their New Year's gifts the earliest. She subconsciously looked toward the plaque next to the gate. No matter how prestigious Marquis Gu's manor might be, in the end, it was part of the previous regime, and it was now shrouded in a haze. The current ruler favored the Prime Minister's manor the most and not Marquis Gu's manor. Eunuch Qi seemed to pick up on Yu Fu's feelings. After looking around, he lowered his voice, "Your Highness, there's no need to be sad. The New Year's gift to Marquis Gu's manor this year is a little late, but the gifts to Princess have never been delayed. Marquis Gu's manor is Marquis Gu's manor, while Princess, you are a princess. You two are unrelated, so it won't get in the way of His Majesty's favor for you." Unrelated? How could they be unrelated? Yu Fu faintly smiled. "Eunuch Qi, please bring my thanks back to His Majesty. When it comes time for the New Year's banquet, Yu Fu will personally thank His Majesty for his generosity." Eunuch Qi reminded her, "Your Highness, forgive this servant for my indiscretion and speaking out of turn, but it has been 2 months since His Majesty's enthronement, yet the position of Empress remains vacant. All of the officials have turned a blind eye to it. You should understand best what His Majesty is waiting for." He looked up at the beautiful girl before him. Amidst the falling snow, her clear skin was even paler than the snow itself. None could blame His Majesty for yearning for such a beautiful person, even leaving the position of Empress open for her. Yu Fu was stunned. The eldest prince's words about Yin Shuo wanting to marry her were still ringing in her mind, and now Eunuch Qi had come to her with this information. She was not stupid. She could understand what Eunuch Qi meant. It was just that she was not thinking about that at all. "Eunuch Qi, it's snowing heavily outside. I am truly exhausted and will be going in to rest first. Please do as you wish." Eunuch Qi seemed to want to say something else, but Yu Fu had already turned around and started walking toward the manor. He had no choice but to let out a sigh, as a nearby palace servant vaguely heard him mutter something about a national beauty. The western wing was currently buried under the pile of gifts sent by His Majesty. Yu Fu was a little resistant to this and walked over to the main hall. Gu Huaijiang, Gu Shubai, and Gu Wenqing were sitting and drinking tea. Yu Fu entered the room and removed her cloak. It's rare for head general to have not gone out. Even eldest brother is sitting here idly. Gu Shubai smiled and said, Father returned part of his troops to His Majesty and is now very relaxed. This year, our family will finally be able to celebrate the new year together. Gu Wenqing also smiled, that's right. If it was like in previous years, Father wouldn't even be able to rest during the new year. Returning a portion of the troops is also fine. Last year, half of the manor's members were in Changzhou. This year, the family will be able to celebrate together. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. They spoke relaxedly, but Yu Fu could hear the bitterness in their words. Gu Huaijiang had served on the battlefield for decades, and he had never neglected his duties because of his exhaustion. There was only one possible explanation for him acting like this. That would be to avoid the suspicions of the one in power. It was the case with the previous ruler, and it was also the case with Ning Qingji. The difference was that the previous ruler did not allow Gu Huaijiang to resign even if he was suspicious. However, Ning Qingji was very happy to agree. Yu Fu thought back to what Eunuch Qi had said and started feeling more and more unhappy. Forcing a smile, she said, That's right. This is also good. This year, we will finally be able to celebrate with the entire family. Gu Huaijiang said, I heard from the servants that you went to the eldest prince's manor. The sign at the eldest prince's manor had been removed 2 months earlier. The so-called eldest prince's manor was now just a manor of criminals. Every person living there could be bullied. The eldest prince's title had also been stripped. Nobody in court dared to mention him, and he would only occasionally be brought up in private conversations. Yu Fu nodded, with my status, it's better that I go than if my elder brothers went. First, it's to show consideration for past interactions, and second, it was related to Yin Shuo. She looked up at the others and spoke in a stern tone. Yin Shuo knew that the eldest prince poisoned the late emperor, and he used that to threaten the eldest prince into assassinating the late emperor. Yin Shuo is the one who instigated the whole thing. Our speculation was correct. Gu Shubai said, a dying man's last words are often true. The eldest prince has no reason to try and lie to us. Yin Shuo is a truly sinister person. With how much His Majesty favors and trusts him, I fear that our Marquis Gu's manor. Gu Huaijiang let out a sigh and said, there have been signs of Yin Shuo opposing Marquis Gu's manor since long ago. Now that he has taken away all of the cabinet's power, he wields even more influence and power than with the late emperor. This is the reason for me relinquishing part of my power. We can oppose Yin Shuo without giving an inch, but we can't do the same with His Majesty. As the saying went, if a ruler wanted a subject to die, that subject had no choice but to die. He was not that blindly loyal, but if the ruler wanted to take away his power, he would happily comply. Power was never something that he wanted. Trading it for some peace of mind was worth it. Gu Wenqing said, Father, blindly making concessions is not the best way of doing things. Despite clearly knowing that Yin Shuo is the one who planned the late emperor's assassination, do we have to allow him to act as he pleases in court? Gu Shubai glanced at him and motioned for him to stop talking about this topic. If there was a way of revealing Yin Shuo's true character, they would have used it, but after 2 full months of looking for evidence of Yin Shuo's participation, they could not find anything. He had acted too quickly. Targeting the time when they would be fighting at the border with Western Kun to carry out the plan, then erasing all of the evidence while they were rushing back to the capital. All of the blame was placed on the eldest prince, while Yin Shuo kept himself completely clean. He changed the topic. Yu Fu, what was the cause of the commotion outside just now? Did the palace send another gift? Yu Fu slightly nodded with an absent-minded look. Yaolan waited on her from next to the door and suddenly poked her head in. Young miss, why didn't you tell them everything? Right before leaving, the eldest prince said something important. Why didn't you tell Lord Marquis and the others? Yu Fu did not have a chance to stop her when Gu Shubai said, what important thing did he say? Yaolan ignored Yu Fu's gestures. Young miss, don't try to stop me. This matter is too important. Everyone must be told. The eldest prince said that Prime Minister Yin's condition for working with the eldest prince was to marry the young miss. Chapter 348 should return to the Prime Minister's manor, Part 2, it's about to be the new year. Young miss, do you really plan on not returning to the Prime Minister's manor? Pei was standing at the dressing table and putting away the makeup supplies. It was the end of the year, so it was important to be dressed a little more beautifully. All of the exquisite and valuable accessories were brought out to match the clothing. Yin Jiao sat at the foot of her bed and worked on an embroidery. After hearing this question, she put down her needle. That's right. It's about to be the new year. It's not quite right to celebrate the new year in someone else's home. I don't know if they will allow me to continue staying in Marquis Gu's manor. Pei was stunned. Young miss, you're only worried about if Lord Marquis Gu and the others will ask you to leave, but you should also think about our own manor. After all, you are a young miss of the Prime Minister's manor. It wouldn't be right to not go back to celebrate the new year, right? Yin Jiao looked at her with a frown. Have you forgotten about how we desperately fled from that place? So what if I am a young miss of the Prime Minister's manor? Who truly treats me like one? She felt the gauze on her forehead. The scar underneath was faintly visible, but it was already much better than when it was completely dark. Unfortunately, despite Yu Fu trying all sorts of ideas, she could only treat her wound to this degree. It was impossible to restore her skin to how it was before. Every time that Pei saw the scar on Yin Jiao's face, she felt responsible. Though that is the case, this servant heard that His Majesty has allowed the former master to return to the manor to celebrate the new year. With the former master here, eldest young sir won't dare to do anything to young miss. Father will be coming back to celebrate the new year. Yin Jiao was extremely shocked. Back then, her father had been exiled for the crime of attempting to have the heir to Marquis Gu's manor assassinated. Put politely, he was allowed to retire and return to his family home, but the people in court knew the truth. Now that a new ruler had ascended, he was allowed to return. It seemed that the rumors were indeed true. His Majesty's trust in the Prime Minister's manor surpassed his trust in Marquis Gu's manor. She hastily asked Pei, will he return for the new year then leave, or will he be staying in the capital? Pei smiled and said, naturally, he will be staying in the capital. If he was only returning for the new year, how could this servant dare to have young miss go back? She thought that news of Yin Yan returning to the capital would surely make Yin Jiao rejoice. Who knew that she would frown even more? Father committed such a grave crime. The late emperor's treatment was already merciful enough. For His Majesty to do this now, it must be because of eldest brother's actions for His Majesty. To the people of Marquis Gu's manor, how much must this hurt? Pei said, young miss has lived in Marquis Gu's manor for 2 months and has begun speaking up for the people of the manor. Although the people of Marquis Gu's manor have treated us extremely well, young miss is, in the end, a member of the Prime Minister's manor. Pei was afraid that she would not understand and desperately said, no matter how much young miss hates the eldest young sir and likes Marquis Gu's manor, young miss should understand. If you don't return to the Prime Minister's manor, there will be no way for you to officially marry the second young sir. With how high of a standing the second young sir occupies, how could he possibly marry a girl with no family background? Ever since Yin Jiao's face was injured, she did not dare consider marrying Gu Jiugu. Alright, what is this about getting married or not? Not to mention me being a young miss of the Prime Minister's manor, but even if I was a princess, the second young sir might not want to marry me. Though she said this, she could not help but admit that there was some logic to what Pear had said. She had been living in Marquis Gu's manor this entire time, but who would care for her in the future? She was living here in a dubious manner. After the new ruler ascended, Kun Yuyang returned to her own manor. It was now time for her to consider leaving. As for whether or not she would leave and how she would leave, she would need to talk about it with Gu Jiugu. Yin Jiao suddenly stood up, straightened out her bangs, and applied another layer of red lipstick. Pear said, "Young miss, where are you going?" Yin Jiao tidied herself up while saying, "I am going to look for the second young sir. There's no need for you to come. I will go by myself." Pear knew that she did not want to be disturbed by anyone when speaking with Gu Jiugu. She just brought out a cloak and draped it on her. "Young miss, take your time. It's hard to walk in the snow. This servant will pack a hand warmer for you." After carefully taking care of her appearance, Yin Jiao allowed Pear to put the cloak on her. With a smile, she walked out. She just wanted to ask Gu Jiugu one question. Did he want her to leave or not? Arriving outside Gu Jiugu's courtyard, she saw that the door to the room was closed. A male servant was sweeping away the snow in the courtyard and saw Yin Jiao. "Young Miss Yin. Have you come to look for the second young sir?" Yin Jiao smiled and recognized that it was Zhong Xia from Gu Jiugu's courtyard. "That's right. Is he not in?" Zhong Xia smiled and said, "Our second young sir has gone drinking with third young sir." It was the third young sir who forcibly dragged him out. In the past, third young sir always said that second young sir drinking all of the time was bad, but this time, he was the one who insisted on going. You didn't see that scene, but it made me laugh so hard that my belly hurt. Yin Jiao could not help but laugh, covering her mouth. "Then where have they gone? I have something that I wish to talk to the second young sir about." Zhong Xia leaned on the broom and pointed toward the garden. "If they aren't next to the rockery in the garden, they will be at the pavilion. How about I have someone find them for young Miss Yin?" "No need, I will go myself." Yin Jiao thanked him with a smile and then headed in the direction that he had pointed. Zhong Xia watched her parting figure with a foolish smile. He thought to himself that this young Miss Yin was about to become the second wife of the manor. She had been living in the manor for 2 months. Who knew when the marriage would happen? It was a pity that there was a scar on her face. Thinking about her former appearance. Chapter 349 Carry out an important task. Part 3. Following the rocky path to the backyard, the garden looked very desolate during winter. Fortunately, after a day of snow, the barren branches were covered in snow. It ended up looking quite pretty under a layer of silver. A cold wind blew, and everything was covered in a layer of white. Someone spoke in a loud voice, "That brazen Yin Shuo. He actually wants to marry Yu Fu. Does he not know that the late emperor personally sanctioned the engagement between Yu Fu and eldest brother?" It was Gu Jiugu's voice. Yin Jiao hid behind the rockery, as the wind carried the conversation past the rockery and into her ears. The two people on the other side, however, did not notice her presence. Gu Hanamo helped him into the pavilion. "Second brother, don't rush to get upset. Yin Shuo even dares to bully Princess Danyang, so what is there that he doesn't dare to do? I heard that Princess Danyang was severely ill and cannot even attend the New Year's banquet." Yin Jiao covered her mouth. She did not think that in a mere 2 months, Princess Danyang's illness would get so much worse. Although she did not like Princess Danyang's domineering personality, she had also been treated well by her. She was the one who had brought in the imperial physician to treat her wound, and, more importantly, she was still her eldest sister-in-law. Yin Jiao felt a little saddened. Gu Jiugu said, "It was actually like that. Just what sort of mind-altering concoction is he feeding His Majesty? He is the mastermind behind a plan to kill his ruler, yet His Majesty has absolute faith in him. It's a pity that the eldest prince is on his own on the road to the underworld. He should go and keep the eldest prince company." When Yin Jiyao heard this, she was not particularly shocked. Gu Jiugu and the others had never talked to her about this matter, but she was not stupid. She could guess how they felt based on their expressions and tones. It was not just because of them. Rather, it was because she understood Yin Shuo. This eldest brother of hers, who had always been cold and unfeeling, had been sought out by the eldest prince, so how could he possibly have gone undercover to look for evidence for the second prince? This was not his style. Gu Hanamo let out a sigh. Did second brother think that I didn't think about it? Father has given up control of many military matters. This is the same as giving up a portion of our military power. But His Majesty still does not think that it was enough, and Marquis Gu's manor is no longer treated as warmly as before. I heard Steward Qi talk about this one topic, but I don't know if it's true or not. What topic? He said that Eunuch Qi hinted to Father that Yu Fu might be married into the palace to become empress, but Father refused to agree. The wine jug was heavily placed on the table. Since the matter was related to Yu Fu, Gu Jiugu immediately became infuriated. It must have been spurred on by Yin Shuo. That Yin Shuo, I can't forgive him. Gu Hanamo rushed to calm him down. Second brother, this matter hasn't yet been decided. Father does not plan to tell Yu Fu for fear of disturbing her. You absolutely must not speak about it, and, even more importantly, you must not be rash. Gu Jiugu had drank too much wine, and his mind was a bit hazy. Being consoled by Gu Hanamo, he slowly calmed down. He suddenly remembered something. Third brother, if we can't find any clues of Yin Shuo's participation in the assassination of the late emperor, can we do anything from Jiao's angle? Yin Jiyao heard her name mentioned and became a little nervous. Gu Hanamo said, "Elder brother is talking about young Miss Yin's background. Once word of young Miss Yin's birth mother being a female general from Western Kuan is made public, Yin Yan won't be able to escape being found guilty, and it might implicate Yin Shuo. But, won't the innocent young Miss Yin also get hurt?" Crack. It sounded like a branch snapping in the snow, and it came from behind the rockery. Gu Hanamo immediately became alert. Who's there? A girl walked out from behind the rockery. Wearing a rose-colored fox fur cloak, her head hung low with a white gauze covering her forehead. Gu Hanamo thought to himself that things were bad. The girl raised her head. Sure enough, it was Yin Jiyao. Gu Jiugu had also mostly sobered up. Jiyao. Why have you come here? Yin Jiyao lifted the hem of her dress and walked forward. Her usually gentle and graceful movements were now very firm. It was as if she had made an incredibly important decision. She walked to the pavilion and looked at the two. What female general from Western Kuan? You said that my birth mother is a female general from Western Kuan. Father said that she was a common woman from a brothel. How could that identity have changed to a general from Western Kuan? Gu Hanamo furrowed his brow. Initially, he had wanted to drink with Gu Jiugu because he was feeling annoyed from hearing about Yin Shuo wanting to marry Yu Fu. Who knew that they would be overheard by Yin Jiyao? Now, things were even more complicated. He glanced at Gu Jiugu. This matter should be told to young Miss Yin by second brother. I will be leaving first. Farewell. Come back. Gu Jiugu reached out but only managed to grab a corner of his robe. He actually used Qinggong to flee. The two sat across from each other in the pavilion. One desperately tried to conceal the matter, while the other was in tears but was resolute. Taking advantage of his tipsiness, Gu Jiugu decided to stop worrying about this matter. All right, I will tell you. But you absolutely cannot tell anyone, especially your father and brother. Do you understand? Yin Jiao nodded. Don't worry. I absolutely won't do anything that would cause harm to Marquis Gu's manor. She wore a serious expression, while Gu Jiugu tipsily squinted at her. Reaching out, he patted her head. There's no need to be nervous. Your mother was a very strong and courageous woman. You should be happy. At dinner the next day, Yin Jiao suddenly went to say goodbye to Yu Fu. Yu Fu was a little surprised. You're returning to the Prime Minister's manor. Did the manor's servants not do a thorough enough job of taking care of you? Yin Jiao repeatedly shook her head. That's not it. The servants in Marquis Gu's manor are well trained and have taken very good care of me. It's just that it's about to be the end of the year, and it wouldn't do for me to stay at Marquis Gu's manor forever, thus I was thinking of going back. She had stayed in Marquis Gu's manor for 2 months, and Yu Fu had done her best to treat her scar. She was full of gratitude toward Yu Fu, and the two had become good friends. Yu Fu decided to just be blunt. Are you not afraid of your eldest brother hurting you after you return to the Prime Minister's manor? Yin Jiao laughed. Don't worry. My father returned today. With him here, eldest brother won't dare to do anything rash. Your father. Yin Jiao did not miss the look of disappointment flashing through her eyes. She suddenly kneeled in front of Yu Fu, and the latter quickly had Yalan help her up. Jiao, what are you doing? Yin Jiao said, I know that my father committed a grave crime and nearly took the eldest young sir's life. I also know that my eldest brother has tried to oppose Marquis Gu's manor in court many times, which forced Lord Marquis Gu to hand over a portion of his military strength. My Yin family has let down Marquis Gu's manor, and I apologize on behalf of my father and brother. Yu Fu said, quickly get up. They are them, and you are you. You have a kind heart, and those things have nothing to do with you. A kind heart. Princess, I am unworthy of such a compliment. Yin Jiao smiled sarcastically. Did you know that I wasn't completely oblivious to the underhanded methods that my father and brother employed in court? Just like this time, when eldest brother plotted the assassination of the late emperor. The truth is that I knew about it. Yu Fu was stunned, but she continued, I was even their accomplice, as I helped them by playing the role of a honey trap. Did you know that when I first met the second young sir, it was an assignment from my father and brother? Yu Fu looked at her without speaking. This time, Yin Jiao was the one who was stunned. You knew. You all knew. Yu Fu did not plan to continue discussing this matter. She just held Yin Jiao's hand. All right, that's all in the past. There's no need to bring it up again. After those things happened, you have treated people with sincerity, so there won't be anyone who can use those things against you. Do you understand? Yin Jiao said, but I can tell that you're very disappointed and feel very sad. The one responsible for murdering the ruler is held in high regard in court, while a loyal family like Marquis Gu's manor is being suppressed. What sort of morality is this? As someone from the Yin family, not even I can bear to witness it. How can you possibly accept it? Regardless of whether or not I can, Head General won't oppose any of His Majesty's decisions. It's as you say. Marquis Gu's manor is loyal, and Head General is a loyal subject. He would rather relinquish control of the troops under his command if that meant remaining loyal to His Majesty. As Yu Fu spoke, she suddenly remembered what Eunuch Qi had mentioned when he had come to deliver the gifts, and her heart turned cold. Yin Jiao seemed to understand what she was talking about. Then if His Majesty insisted on having you become Empress, would Lord Marquis Gu still refuse to oppose him? Yu Fu suddenly turned toward her. How did you know about this? Yin Jiao frowned. Recently, everyone in court knows about it. His Majesty previously brought this up with Lord Marquis Gu, but Lord Marquis Gu did not agree. Second young sir, and the others thought that you were naturally less sensitive to romantic matters and did not know about His Majesty's feelings toward you. That's why they have been hiding it from you this entire time. But based on what I've seen, you clearly know. Yu Fu smiled wryly. Eunuch Chi also implied it to me, but I put it off. Yin Jiao said, you can put it off for some time, but you can't ignore it forever. A starving camel is still larger than a horse. No matter how much His Majesty tries to suppress Marquis Gu's manor, it will not collapse, but His Majesty will eventually run out of patience. My eldest brother will also refuse to just wait around. This is the reason that I must return to the Prime Minister's manor. You mean to say that you will be returning to the Prime Minister's manor to help keep an eye on Yin Shua's movements for me? Yin Jiao suddenly smiled, revealing her pearly white teeth. It was unlike her usual ladylike demeanor. I heard that my birth mother was a female general. I want to be like her and do something important. Chapter 350 Yin Yen Returns, Part 1. The lengthy poem sounds burdened and lonesome, but when the grand carriage returns to carry out an inspection. The return home in silk clothes is of lesser import, as all riches shall be bequeathed to the ex-wife. The small blue carriage passed by on the long street but came to a screeching halt upon hearing this poem recited at a nearby restaurant. A wrinkled hand reached out from the carriage's window and tremblingly lifted a corner of the curtain. This revealed an aged face with eyes that were no longer as sharp as before. He slightly lifted his head and saw the words Yukshan building on the plaque outside. What is this place? The servant driving the carriage heard his hoarse voice and hurriedly said, Master, this is the best restaurant in the capital. Even His Majesty has visited it and wrote a couplet for it. I heard that it's a business under Princess Zhenjiang's ownership. They are always bringing in people to perform for the guests, and that voice must have belonged to the singer inside. The elderly man slowly nodded and took his time contemplating the name Princess Zhenjiang while lowering the curtain. He had only been gone for 1 year, but that adopted girl in Marquis Gu's manor with an unclear background had already become a princess. Just what sort of drastic change had occurred in the capital? The small carriage continued on its way and came to a stop in front of the Prime Minister's manor. The servant at the gate saw the rundown carriage and snorted with contempt. Yet another one has come to curry favor with our Prime Minister's manor. Even the person riding in this sort of carriage dares to come and curry favor with the Prime Minister's manor. Did they not see that even great lords riding in pearl-adorned carriages pulled by 4 horses have been driven away? As he said this, he waved his hand to motion for the small carriage to be chased away. Who knew that the driver of the carriage would be the first to speak? Hey, why haven't you gone to get the eldest young sir and young miss to come and receive master? Have 2 people come and help carry master's luggage. Master. The servant froze. Ma master. You've returned. Quickly go and help master out. The latter command was directed to the servants. The group that was about to chase them away with fiendish expressions saw his expression change at an incredible speed. They too hastily put on fawning smiles and bowed before moving next to the small carriage. The driver helped Yin Yen out of the carriage, and everyone was shocked by the sight. Master had only gone to the old family home for a year, so how did he age like this? Yin Shua and Yin Jiao exited the manor one after the other. Rushing forward, they moved to support Yin Yen. The sight of father and son, who had been separated for a long time, caused tears and snot to flow. Yin Jiao was already sobbing. Father, how did you become so thin? Are you cold? She took a hand warmer from Pear and stuffed it into Yin Yan's hands. The latter immediately noticed the white gauze on her head. What happened to your face? Yin Shua felt his heart drop, as he thought to himself that this matter could not be hidden from Yin Yen. He could only smile and say, Father, it's cold outside. Let's go in and have a leisurely chat. From the main gate to the main hall, Yin Yan paid close attention to the atmosphere in the manor. There were no changes from when he had left, and the main hall was still clean. It seemed that it was being cleaned from time to time. But he could acutely feel that something had changed. The servants' expressions had changed. They were all full of joy and pride, and they were much more respectful toward the eldest young Sir, Yin Shuo. Eldest young Sir, Lord Lu from the Board of Civil Office has come and requested a meeting. Will you be seeing him or see him? Did you not see that father return today? I won't be seeing anyone. When a servant came in to report, Yin Shuo glanced in his direction, and the servant immediately bowed and retreated from the main hall. Yin Yan noted his assertiveness and felt his heart sink a little but did not say anything. It was only after sitting down in the head seat with a cup of hot tea in his hand did he say, "You are now the Prime Minister. You stand above all but one and are heavily favored by His Majesty. That Lord Lu must have come to curry favor with you, yes?" Yin Shuo spoke inattentively. When His Majesty sent the New Year's gifts, the Prime Minister's manor was the first to receive the gifts. In the past, these people didn't even think about us. But now that His Majesty favors us, they do their utmost to curry favor with us. Just how should Sun look at them? Yin Yan knew that Yin Shuo enjoyed the new ruler's favor but did not know that he was being favored to such a degree. He said in surprise, "Then what of Marquis Gu's manor?" The corners of Yin Shuo's lips slightly curled up. His Majesty only sent New Year's gifts to the princess at Marquis Gu's manor. As for Marquis Gu's manor itself, they will need to wait a little longer. I don't think Marquis Gu's manor has ever been given the cold shoulder to such a degree before. Father, are you happy? Happy? Ah, I'm happy. Yin Yan was thinking about something, as he turned to look toward Yin Jiao. What exactly happened to cause the injury to your face? Let father take a look. How did it affect such a large area? He removed the white gauze, and the dark scar beneath it caused him to frown. He immediately looked toward Yin Shuo with displeasure. When father left, I told you two that you two must support each other. How could you let your younger sister get this injured? Yin Shuo looked toward Yin Jiao. Rather than waiting for her to voice her complaints, it would be better for him to tell Yin Yan first. Sooner or later, this matter would be exposed. Yin Yan might get angry over this, but he would never overreact and have a falling out with him over Yin Jiao. He had faith in this. Just as he was about to speak, Yin Jiao took the opportunity and spoke first. It was a result of my willfulness. Eldest brother told me to do something, but in my carelessness, I hurt my head. Blaming eldest brother, I refused to see an imperial physician. When eldest brother did bring an imperial physician in to treat me, I refused to take the medicine and refused to be treated. That was what caused the scar. Yin Shuo froze and pursed his lips but did not speak. This younger sister of his had lived in Marquis Gu's manor for 2 months and suddenly returned yesterday. Upon entering, she said that she knew that father would be returning soon and wanted to bury the hatchet with him. She wanted to act as if the things in the past had not happened. Yin Shuo did not know what plan she had up her sleeves, but he could not refuse. If Yin Yan returned and found out that she was not in the Prime Minister's manor, things would be even more disastrous. He initially thought that Yin Jiao would surely complain about him to Yin Yan, but she actually took the initiative to cover up for him. Why was she doing this? Yin Shuo never believed in someone being kind just to be kind, even if that person was his own younger sister. He cautiously observed Yin Jiao and suddenly heard Yin Yan say, "Why have I not seen Princess Danyang? When you sent that letter to tell father, father was overjoyed. It's just that there were a few items left behind by your mother that could not be delivered to daughter-in-law in time." Yin Shuo smiled and gave a look to the servant at the door. The servant swiftly ran off to invite Princess Danyang. Speaking of, Danyang still has not greeted father as your daughter-in-law. Son will have someone bring her to come and greet father. He had used the word bring and not invite. Yin Yen seemed to notice that something was off, and he could not help but stand up in shock upon seeing Princess Danyang walk in. She was thin and wearing plain clothes. Yin Shua grabbed his hand. Father, please sit. Danyang is of the younger generation. Morals dictate that she should greet father. Yin Yen furrowed his brow and quietly said, morally speaking, this is true, but there's a difference between rulers and subjects. When a princess arrives, it's not like with most other families. You and I are subjects, while she is from the ruling family. Yin Shua smiled and looked down toward Princess Danyang. She stepped forward and bowed to Yin Yen. Greetings, former Prime Minister. Yin Yen felt the atmosphere was odd. The letter clearly stated that Yin Shua and Princess Danyang were living a normal newlywed life. However, he felt that these two did not seem like a newlywed couple at all. Instead, they felt like rivals, neither wanting to look at the other. Before Yin Yen could speak, Yin Shua stood up and scolded her. It's the end of the year, yet you're wearing such plain clothes. It's also a good day since father returned today. Are you trying to curse my prime minister's manner? Yin Yen was shocked, never thinking that he would openly scold Princess Danyang in front of him. Seeing Yin Jiao wear a distant and uncaring expression while sipping tea on her own, Princess Danyang's status in the manor was clear to see. Princess Danyang did not show any reaction to being insulted and scolded. She just looked up and sneered, saying, Father Emperor passed away less than 3 months ago. As his daughter, tell me, what is wrong with my show of filial piety? Could it be that husband wanted me to wear a set of red clothes and celebrate the new year with you? A look of fierceness flashed through Yin Shuo's eyes. Yin Jiao stealthily looked up and forced herself to continue feigning aloofness. Yin Yen immediately moved to advise against this. All right, you should be a little more polite to Princess. What she said is right. His Majesty's mourning period has not yet ended. Though it's the end of the year, we must not celebrate too much. We should be a little more reserved. Saying this, he walked over to Princess Danyang and gently said, when Princess arrived in the Prime Minister's manor, this old man was in the old home and could not come to greet you. In accordance with the Yin family's rules, this old man has a few accessories that the late madam wore that shall be bequeathed to Princess. They are items that my mother handed down. Yin Jiao smiled and said, those accessories were given to mother by grandmother. Mother would then hand them down to her daughter-in-law. Not even her own daughter would have a chance of receiving them. Eldest sister-in-law must accept them. Yin Yen nodded with a smile. The vigorous and resolute Prime Minister Yin of the past was now nothing more than an old man watching over the younger generation. Although Princess Danyang's heart was full of hatred, she still nodded to Yin Yen. Many thanks, former Prime Minister. TN, the poem at the start is quite likely to be mistranslated. Chapter 351 What exactly is going on? Part 2. After the conversation, Yin Yen and Yin Shuo returned to the outer study. Yin Yen then ordered a servant to go and invite an imperial physician to come and treat Yin Jiao, saying that he was worried that if a girl had a scar on her face, she would not be able to get married. He did not know that Yin Jiao's scar could not be treated. She did not expose this matter, only saying that she would accompany Princess Danyang back to the eastern courtyard. While she was on her way, she said for the imperial physician to come and examine Princess Danyang. Yin Shuo did not move to stop her. Any imperial physician who came to the Prime Minister's manor would know what illnesses they could treat and what illnesses they could not treat. Yin Yen stepped into the outer study. The light coming through the windows was a little bright. The entire study was bathed in light, making it completely different from the dim room that it had been before. He was stunned. For the first time, he felt that he was no longer the master of the Prime Minister's manor. You've turned the outer study. Shuo quickly cupped his hands and said, I took the initiative to change a number of things and hope that father will forgive me. Since I am heavily favored by His Majesty and have my status as a husband to the imperial family, the manor receives far more guests than it did before. There are some things that need to be discussed in the outer study, and keeping it as dark as it was in the past would arouse suspicion. Yan nodded but looked as if he had something on his mind. That's right. You are the prestige of the current court. You have already surpassed father. Shuo feared that he would overthink things and quickly said, no matter how tall a mountain gets, it can never rise as high as the sun. Father is father. No matter how high sun climbs, father will always be the most important person in son's heart. This was originally father's study. If father does not like the changes, it can be changed back for father to use. Yen smiled, there's no need. The brightness is quite nice. In the past, only the two of us came here, so it was fine for it to be a little darker. You're right that now that you are receiving more people now, it should be a little brighter. What would father do with this study? I no longer have any official matters to work on or any office work. You can use it yourself. At any rate, the main hall has a small study. If father wishes to read or work on calligraphy, that place will suffice. He spoke earnestly, and Shuo did not continue to press the issue. Yen walked around the study and saw that the desk was covered in a number of texts. He subconsciously reached out to read one but retracted it. These texts were for the Prime Minister, and he was no longer the Prime Minister. Even if they were father and son, it was best if there was a clearer distinction when it came to things pertaining to court affairs and influence. He sat down in an armchair to the side and glanced at Shuo. The old home is far away, and there are many things that you have written about that father does not know much about. But father has yet to become muddled with old age. From the moment that I stepped into the manor to this very moment, all of you have been spouting nothing but lies. Do you think that father has become old and muddled? His gaze was sharp, just like when he was dubbed the hawk-eyed Prime Minister in court. Shuo was shocked and quickly stepped forward. Son doesn't dare. Whatever father wishes to know, son will definitely tell father. Son would not dare to hide anything. Then why don't you tell me first about what exactly happened with His Majesty's assassination? Jiao accompanied Princess Danyang back to her room and dismissed all servants aside from Pei'er and Yenner. Princess, the imperial physician will be here shortly. I will have him examine you. The scar on my forehead can never be treated, and I have accepted that, but your illness cannot be ignored forever. As a girl, though not yet married, Jiao remembered some things that the granny responsible for teaching her taught her. Every time that she thought about this, she felt extremely saddened. She had formed a kinship with Princess Danyang through their shared suffering. They both had to survive under Shuo's cruelty. Princess Danyang smiled. Stop calling me princess. The emperor in the imperial palace is my elder brother, but he doesn't care at all whether I live or die. He only cares about Shuo, the prime minister who can help him accumulate influence. You and I are both just chess pieces to our families. You clearly know this, yet you call me princess. It just feels like a joke to me. Jiao thought about it for a bit. She hated Shuo a great deal, so she would probably dislike being called eldest sister-in-law. Thus she said, then, how about I call you by your given name? Princess Danyang nodded and said, as for the matter of having that imperial physician examine me, there's no need to worry about it. Oh, did you think that Shuo wouldn't know that you would think of having the imperial physician examine me? He wouldn't allow an imperial physician to know about my illness, and even if they did find out, he would allow them to let His Majesty find out. Even all of the imperial physicians have been taken in by eldest brother. That doesn't seem to be the case. He can take in one or two, but there are too many imperial physicians, and there are many officials in court. someone would eventually tell His Majesty about my condition. The corners of Princess Danyang's lips were curled up, but her eyes were cold and full of despair. Do you think that His Majesty has truly been deceived and has not saved me because of that? In the end, it's just that He doesn't care about me. In the past, He would think highly of me because I could talk him up in front of Father Emperor. Now that he is the ruler, the only ones he cares about are the officials with power. For example, Yin Shuo. Yin Jiao seemed to have an idea, suddenly saying, but the imperial physicians all want to try to get close with Yu Fu. If I mention Yu Fu's name, they might be willing to earnestly treat your illness. Princess Danyang had not heard that name in such a long time that it actually felt as though she had been isolated in a different world. She lifted her head and blankly looked at Yin Jiao, Yu Fu. Oh, sure enough, you lived in Marquis Gu's manor for 2 months and have already gotten familiar enough to call her by her name. Chapter 352 Related to You, Part 3. Yin Jiao fell silent for a moment. She knew that Princess Danyang and Yu Fu were not on good terms. Back then, the one whom Princess Danyang wanted to marry was Gu Shubai. However, Gu Shubai did not want to marry her. After Yu Fu appeared, she obtained Gu Shubai's love and affection, and this was true of the other members of Marquis Gu's manor. This caused the self-important Princess Danyang to become envious to the point of going mad. Things only started to get better after she married into the Prime Minister's manor. Princess Danyang said, "You wanted to bring an imperial physician in to treat me. I believe this isn't just to repay me for inviting an imperial physician for you, right? The people in Marquis Gu's manor sent you to do it." No, that's not it. Yin Jiao quickly waved her hands. "The only reason that I was able to leave the Prime Minister's manor is that the third young sir came looking for you. But it wasn't Marquis Gu's manor's people who wanted to let His Majesty know about your situation. It was me." "You?" Yin Jiao nodded. "Do you find it incredibly hard to believe that I would want to ruin the glorious position that the Prime Minister's manors currently enjoys and want to expose my own eldest brother?" "Expose?" "The exposing that you are talking about, it's not just his harsh treatment of me, is it?" Princess Danyang looked at her with a frown. There was a beautiful resonance between the two girls who shared feelings of sympathy in their dire situations. She seemed to instantly gain an understanding from the look in Yin Jiao's eyes. She trembled. It was Yin Shuo who killed Father Emperor. Yin Jiao did not answer her, as her gaze landed on her white dress. The Princess Danyang, who usually dressed in flashy colors, was currently wearing plain clothes, giving her a uniquely beautiful appearance. Her body swayed, and she nearly fell to the floor. Yin Jiao quickly moved to support her. "You absolutely must not reveal it. His Majesty will not believe it, and you will end up being killed." Princess Danyang nodded. She had been by Yin Shuo's side for quite some time, and she knew just how ruthless that man could be. But since she knew about this, she could not just sit around and do nothing. "Jiao, will you be attending the palace's New Year's banquet?" Yin Jiao slightly furrowed her brow. "In the past, before I was disfigured, they would not allow me to frequently go into the palace." She paused when she said this, then suddenly remembered why Yin Yan and Yin Shuo did not allow her to go into the palace. It was because her birth mother was Lu Yinyin, a female general from Western Kuan. They were worried that if she made an appearance in front of people from outside the family, those outsiders might recognize that she had some of the same facial features as the female general from back then. Even if that female general had passed away over a decade ago, and nearly nobody remembered her appearance, there was still Gu Huaijiang. Before leaving Marquis Gu's manor, Gu Huaijiang himself told her that she looked almost exactly like Lu Yinyin. It was just that one's brows had a vigorous and valiant appearance, while the other was more emotional and expressive. In that moment, Yin Jiao no longer wanted to be a weak and useless girl. Princess Danyang reached out and waved her hand in front of her eyes. What are you thinking about? Ah, it's nothing. Yin Jiao regained her composure. I was saying that now that I have been disfigured, they're even more unlikely to allow me to go into the palace. But you can go into the palace. Me? Princess Danyang was feeling a little uncertain. Yin Shuo might not allow me to go into the palace. Even if I do go, I am not certain that I will be able to do anything. What do you want to do? Princess Danyang smiled. What I want to do is naturally the same as what you want to do. The resentment for the murder of her father was absolutely irreconcilable. She absolutely could not allow Yin Shuo to go unpunished and wield great power in court. Yin Jiao thought for a bit. Danyang, don't be rash. Let me think about it properly. She slowly walked over to the table and sat down. Princess Danyang also followed her and sat down. She did not feel compelled to rush her. After a long pause, Yin Jiao said, as His Majesty's younger sister, it would be unreasonable for you to not be allowed to attend the New Year's banquet. This is especially true now that father has returned. Father is someone who favors tradition, so I am guessing that eldest brother will allow you to attend. As for what you can do after entering the palace, all you can do is tell His Majesty about how eldest brother treats you. You absolutely must not tell him about how his involvement in the assassination of the emperor. Princess Danyang said, why can't I tell him? Could it be that it's not true? Yin Jiao said, based on how much His Majesty currently trusts eldest brother, not to mention him not believing you, but even if he did believe you, eldest brother could also explain it to him as having been for the sake of helping His Majesty ascend the throne. Forgive me for speculating on a conspiracy, but if the late emperor did not die, His Majesty would not have become the emperor. Isn't that right? Princess Danyang's entire body trembled but did not refute what Yin Jiao had said. She understood that Yin Jiao was right. Both the eldest prince and the second prince worked tirelessly for the throne. In their eyes, the life of the late emperor was worth less than the throne. When the late emperor had been sick and on the verge of death, the second prince was only occupied with the crown prince's position. When had he ever shown concern for the late emperor's condition? She suddenly laughed. It's not speculation of a conspiracy. What you said is the truth. Does it just stop with His Majesty? Back then, was I not the same as His Majesty? I was only focused on helping him obtain the throne. All thoughts about what would happen after he ascended were cast to the back of my mind. She carefully thought for a moment, then looked at Yin Jiao. Without evidence of Yin Shuo's participation in the assassination of the emperor, I will not bring it up in front of His Majesty. As for my own matters, there's even less need to bring it up. His Majesty does not care. He really does not care. There's nothing that we can do. All we can do is place our hope in Uncle Gu. Lord Marquis Gu. Princess Danyang became serious and said, I finally understand that the only person who is loyal to Father Emperor and cares about the truth of how Father Emperor died is Uncle Gu. Boom! Fireworks soared into the sky and exploded before quickly falling back toward the ground like shooting stars. Before the previous firework finished falling, the next firework was shot into the sky. The sound of fireworks exploding filled the air with no end in sight. A woman in a plain-colored dress stood outside the imperial hall with a few subordinates from the Prime Minister's manor surrounding her in case she made any suspicious moves. She let out a faint sigh. She knew that Yin Shuo would not allow her to get close to His Majesty. Him allowing her to enter the palace for the New Year's banquet was just for show. It was to cover things up with the other officials. Tell His Majesty for me that I am not feeling well and will be leaving first. I wish His Majesty a happy new year and everything will go well. The subordinate quietly nodded, and one person entered the hall to report. The remaining subordinates surrounded Princess Danyang and accompanied her out of the palace. On the surface, it looked as if they were protecting her, but the truth was that they were monitoring her every move. The banquet was in full swing inside the hall, and Ning Qingji did not react to the news of Princess Danyang leaving early. From beginning to end, his gaze never left the seat below him and to his left. That seat that had usually been reserved for Marquis Gu's manor. This year, what caused many to feel surprised was that he did not leave it for Yin Shuo. Instead, he left it for Yu Fu. Ning Qingji picked up his wine kettle. Princess Zhenjiang is a princess who was conferred a title by the late emperor. She also has a fief. Among the few princesses, she is the noblest. The other nobles also lifted their cups but did not know how to respond to what Ning Qingji had said. Among all of the princesses, could it be that the noblest was not his own younger sister, Princess Danyang? She was the princess born of the empress. No matter how noble Yu Fu might have been, she was only the adopted daughter of Marquis Gu's manor. She was also a descendant of the deity of medicine, who had saved the late emperor's life. When it came to bloodlines, she still could not compare with Eastern Ling's princesses that were born to concubines. But Ning Qingji had said this, and nobody dared to refute it. They could only agree. That's right. When the late emperor passed away and the capital became chaotic, it was Princess Zhenjiang who used her own guards to restore the peace. With one person bringing this up, Ning Qingji immediately put down his wine kettle and loudly said, "Who was it that said that?" Everyone immediately waved their hands, expressing that they had not said it. One low-ranked official gritted his teeth and stood up. Scared witless, he said, "Responding to your majesty, it was this official who said it." They were too far apart, and Ning Qingji stared at him for a long time. "Who are you?" This official is Shimin Chuang from the government of Linen. Because of my contributions to quelling the unrest in the capital, your majesty benevolently allowed me to participate in the banquet. Ning Qingji laughed, "Ha ha ha, so you're Shimin Chuang. We know you, we know you. Didn't we confer you a Nemo?" Eunuch Qi quietly reminded him from the side, "Mo Huangsha." "Right, the general from the capital, Mo Huangsha. The two of you aided Princess Zhenjiang in restoring peace to the capital and suppressing the bandits. We are quite pleased. What you just said was very good. Reward him. Reward him generously." Shimin Chuang hastily dropped to his knees to give thanks. He had nearly been scared to death by Ning Qingji, thinking that this new ruler disliked hearing someone speak highly of Princess Zhenjiang. Who knew that he would be delighted and not furious? To have been rewarded generously for saying this really was a stroke of good fortune. Shimin Chuang kneeled and gave thanks to Ning Qingji and Yu Fu. "Many thanks, princess." "Many thanks, princess." Yu Fu sat in the seat reserved for the most revered official and just felt a chill. She looked to the seat across from her. This year, Marquis Gu's manor seats had been pushed down quite a bit. Not only were they below Yin Shuo, but they were also below the members of the cabinet and Ji Daogong. Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai made an appearance. One looked particularly calm, while the other worriedly looked at Yu Fu. Yu Fu dryly laughed and said to Shimin Chuang, "It's all His Majesty's benevolence. It's completely unrelated to me. Lord Shimin, there's no need to be so courteous." Ning Qingji's voice came from above. "Of course, it's related to you." Chapter 353. With the Empress seat as the prize, Yu Fu finally looked up toward the head seat. He was wearing a set of bright yellow dragon-embroidered robes and had a golden crown with 9 sets of beads on his head. He sat on a tall golden throne, and the glamour made it hard to see his expression. He was faintly smiling and looking in her direction. "If not for you, your timely actions, how could Shimin Chuang and Mo Huangsha have managed to quell the chaos in the capital? We wish to reward you, and that is how they conveniently got rewarded." Another person stood up below. It was Mo Huangsha, the other person who was conveniently rewarded. He and Shimin Chuang stood together and gave their thanks to Ning Qingji and to Yu Fu. Yu Fu slightly furrowed her brow, and her eyes became cloudy. Ning Qingji had elevated and praised her in front of military and civil officials, but what was he planning? Seeing that Yu Fu did not speak, he motioned for Shimin Chuang and Mo Huangsha to return to their seats. The fireworks were still being set off outside. Their loud explosions made her feel uneasy. She glanced at the seats across from her, and a number of older officials wore worried expressions. Though she was young, she could understand why they were worried. The sound of strings and woodwinds rose, as two groups of performers entered the hall. In the cold of the 12th month, they wore thin and revealing clothes, as the silver bells around their ankles rang with their every move. "Your Majesty," Yu Fu opened her mouth, and the sound of the instruments immediately stopped. The two groups of dancers froze in place, not daring to move carelessly. Everyone turned to look at her. Yu Fu suddenly stood up. The 3-month mourning period for the late emperor has not yet ended. Though the new year should be celebrated, it would not be good to celebrate too much. The fireworks, the merrymaking, the music and dancing, the fragrant wine. All of these are useless for mourning the late emperor. Your Majesty, please reconsider. She gave voice to what a number of the older officials were thinking. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin looked at her in shock but could not help but sigh in admiration. Who knew that this pampered princess would be so understanding? The rumors of her exceptional qualities were well earned. While this was happening, the hall fell completely silent. Nobody dared to do anything before Ning Qingji spoke. It was not as if nobody else had said what Yu Fu had just said. Before the Board of Rites arranged the banquet, Senior Cabinet Minister Qin led a group of cabinet ministers in jointly signing a petition to Ning Qingji to keep the banquet more modest during the mourning period. However, that petition was completely ignored. After that, they heard from a eunuch that Ning Qingji had slammed their petition to the ground. He even said that if the petition had not been jointly signed, he would have sentenced the person to submit the petition to 50 strikes. With such wanton tyranny, the officials were already exhausted from the assassination of the late emperor, and now they were unable to control their new ruler. That was until Yu Fu spoke up, and she had done it in front of both military and civil officials. Ji Daogong looked at Gu Huaijiang, while Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai exchanged a glance. They were all worried that Ning Qingji would do something bad to Yu Fu. Ha ha ha. The sound of laughter broke the silence, as Ning Qingji waved his hand. Yu Fu is right. Let's get rid of the performances. Tell the people outside to stop setting off the fireworks. Saying this, he lifted his wine kettle. Suddenly realizing something, he poured the wine out behind himself. Come, swap out the wine in the hall for tea. We shall offer a toast of tea to Princess Zhenjiang. He did not get angry. Instead, he did as Yu Fu suggested. The way in which the officials looked at Yu Fu instantly changed. Could it really be as the rumors said, and His Majesty truly wanted to take Princess Zhenjiang as his empress, and that was why he listened to everything that she said? In truth, if there was such a wise empress to assist and guide His Majesty, Eastern Ling's situation in court might be salvageable. Unfortunately, Ji Daogong and Senior Cabinet Minister Qin looked toward Gu Shubai at the same time. At the bottom of their eyes, there was an emotion that was hard to describe. This princess had been engaged to the heir to Marquis Gu's manor, and the two were in love. After His Majesty ascended the throne, he had made many moves to suppress Marquis Gu's manor. If he then took this subject's wife, would it not be criticized by everyone? Senior Cabinet Minister Qin let out a long sigh. He had never felt as much regret over something that he had done as he did today. But even if he regretted it now, if he had allowed the eldest prince to muddle his way to the throne, would the result have been any better than it was now? The officials stared blankly, as the cups of wine in front of them were swapped out for tea. Nobody dared to voice any objections. Ning Qingji raised his cup and offered it to Yu Fu, and Yu Fu expressionlessly drank it. Ning Qingji said, "In order to express our condolences to the late emperor, there shall be no performances today. However, there are quite a few young misses from prominent families that have come in today. When the late emperor was still alive, he loved allowing the young misses to perform. For today, let's act as if the late emperor is still here, and let us use that to express our grief for his passing. How does that sound?" A few of the young misses present revealed looks of joy. Initially, they thought that after Yu Fu had spoken, there would be no chance for them to display the talents that they had worked so hard on. They did not think that this could happen. By using the late emperor's love for entertainment in banquets as a reason, it became impossible to object. Ning Qingji then continued, "Since we are expressing our condolences to the late emperor, all of the unmarried young misses that have come today must perform. We will reward you with glory." Saying this, he clapped his hands, and 4 to 5 eunuchs carried a tall seat in. It had the same golden base as the imperial throne, and the only difference was that the base of this throne had a phoenix engraved on it. It was the empress seat. A discussion broke out among the officials, and looks of desire were visible in the eyes of the young misses. They were eager to put forth their full effort in the upcoming performances. Ning Qingji smiled and said, "It has been 2 months since we were enthroned, yet the empress seat has remained vacant. While the late emperor was still alive, the late empress passed away early from illness, thus it has been decades since the empress seat has been brought out. Today, we will use this as the reward, and one of the young misses will be allowed to sit in the throne." Once this was said, not to mention the young misses, even the officials became excited. The empress seat could not be filled so casually. It was related to the country's foundation. The officials with daughters in the hall were filled with expectation, while Ji Daogong and the other senior ministers were filled with apprehension. Gu Shubai looked toward Yu Fu, and the latter looked back at him and nodded. There was a hint of a smile in her bright eyes, as she tried to reassure him. Regardless of why Ning Qingji brought out the empress seat today, she would not want it. "Your Majesty, would this consort be permitted to participate?" A member of the imperial harem below stood up. Yu Fu recognized her. It was one of Ning Qingji's consorts from before he had ascended the throne. After Ning Qingji ascended, the empress seat remained vacant, and she fully believed that there was some hope. She did not think that he would just confer her the title of imperial consortly and just leave things at that. Naturally, imperial consortly could not accept this. Ning Qingji glanced at her. "You are an imperial consort and not some unmarried young girl. Why are you trying to join in on the excitement?" Imperial consortly puffed up her cheeks and pouted, but it was all pointless. When she sat down, she angrily looked at Yu Fu. What nonsense about using the empress seat as a reward, and what nonsense about selecting one of the young misses present to be the empress. Ning Qingji might be able to deceive others, but he could not deceive her. She knew that the only one he wanted to make empress was Yu Fu. Ning Qingji looked down below. He was not too familiar with the officials' daughters. In previous banquets, things like the order in which the young misses performed were managed by Imperial Consort Xian. Imperial Consort Xian had passed away long ago, and Imperial Consort Li was the only member of his inner palace that had some name recognition. The other concubines from the second prince's manor did not have particularly high standings. As a result, he said to Imperial Consort Li, "Forget it, we will give you some glory. Come and pick the order in which they shall perform." Imperial Consort Li thought quickly and looked down at the various young misses. Suddenly seeing someone whom she had not seen in a long time, she immediately came up with an idea. She pointed at one person, the gems on her golden fingernail protector glimmering. "Let's have young Miss Lu go first." A slender girl stood up from the crowd. Wearing a dazzling dress made of Hangzhou silk embroidered with pomegranate flowers, it was Lu Ruyi, the daughter of Lu Jin, a senior minister in the Board of Civil Office. Yu Fu found her to look familiar and suddenly remembered that she was the one who had previously been rude to her at another palace banquet. After that, Lu Ruyi had been restricted from entering the palace by the late emperor. How did she get into the palace today? Yin Shuo, who had been quietly sitting below her, suddenly leaned over. After His Majesty ascended the throne, he granted amnesty to many. As a senior minister of the Board of Civil Office, His Majesty naturally pardoned something like his darling daughter not being allowed to enter the palace. Gu Shubai saw him lean close to Yu Fu, and his brows slightly furrowed. In the end, he managed to calm himself down. Yu Fu's seat was so far away from Marquis Gu's manners seats. It was clear that Ning Qingji did not hope for them to be together. He could not oppose him in public. Fortunately, Yu Fu managed to create some distance between her and Yin Shuo without anyone noticing. Oh. So it was like that, but His Majesty seems to be quite ignorant of these young misses. It looks as if he doesn't recognize any of them. How could he remember to pardon a young miss who could not enter the palace? Prime Minister Yin should be the one responsible for daily matters. You must be the one who reminded His Majesty, right? Yin Shuo was unable to suppress a smile. He felt that Yu Fu's extremely confrontational way of speaking with him was very entertaining. No matter how vicious she was, he could not get angry at her. That's right. As Prime Minister, should I not try to get along with all officials? Whether it was getting along well or winning them over, everyone knew the truth. Yu Fu rolled her eyes at him and did not say anything else. Chapter 354 If You Were Our Empress, Part 2, Lu Ruyi received the honor and was endlessly thankful. Your Majesty, this girl wishes to perform a dance to celebrate Your Majesty. Ning Qingji politely nodded and sized up Lu Ruyi. He thought to himself that this girl was so old yet had not yet gotten married. Princess Danyang getting married at the age of 16 was already a little late, but this girl was probably around 17 or 18, right? He quietly complained to himself. Why had Imperial Consortly chosen this sort of girl to be the first to perform? Eunuch Qi leaned down and whispered something into his ear, and he shot an angry look at Imperial Consortly, that damn Imperial Consortly. She clearly knows that we like Yu Fu, yet she deliberately chose someone who is Yu Fu's rival to gain glory. He gnashed his teeth at Eunuch Qi, and the latter reassured him, Your Majesty, calm down. Young Miss Lu did indeed offend the princess, but she could not be said to have opposed her. Look at the princess' expression. When has she ever even thought of this person as a rival? Ning Qingji looked toward Yu Fu and saw her carefreely watching Lu Rui's dance. From time to time, she would lower her head to take a sip of tea. There was absolutely no sign of any change in her expression. Only now did he relax. He then motioned for Eunuch Qi to lean over. Imperial Consortly actually dared to act so brazenly. For the next month, don't let her come to our place. We do not wish to see her. Eunuch Qi bowed and accepted the order. When he raised his head, he glanced at Imperial Consortly with a look of delight. 1 month earlier, Imperial Consortly wanted to go to the Imperial Study. By saying that she was the highest-ranking member of the Inner Palace, nobody dared to stop her. However, Ning Qingji happened to not want to see her. As a result, Imperial Consortly cussed out Eunuch Qi today. He finally got revenge. Imperial Consortly, however, did not notice anything. On the contrary, she was cheerfully watching Lu Rui's dance while occasionally observing Yu Fu's expression. Lu Rui's dance was completely unremarkable. The only point worth noting was that her flowing sleeves moved with vigor. Her sleeves' movements were as sharp as swords, which attracted some applause. Hearing the cheers while she danced in the hall, she could not help but feel a little delighted. Thinking back to the previous mid-autumn banquet and the humiliation that she had suffered there, she wanted to get justice. Thinking like this, she flicked her flowing sleeves directly at Yu-Fu. The latter raised her eyes to look at her without any intention of dodging. The sleeves did not reach Yu-Fu, as the sound of soldiers pulling out blades came from all around. Countless soldiers moved to protect her. When she raised her head, she saw countless bits of white cloth fluttering in the air. They were from Lu Rui's flowing sleeves. Yin Shuo was the one closest to Yu-Fu. Upon realizing that something seemed off, he moved to try and protect her. Gu Shubai was also paying close attention to Yu-Fu. Seeing the grim situation, he chose to throw his cup at the flowing sleeves. Who knew that the leader of the Imperial Guards, Meng Fei, who had been standing next to Ning Qingji, would rush forward. He initially intended to cup the sleeves, but because of the cup that had been thrown getting in the way, it was shattered into small pieces. Lu Rui stupidly stood there. Her flowing sleeves had been cut, and she could no longer continue dancing. The atmosphere became awkward. Yin Shuo retreated to his seat, while Meng Fei returned to Ning Qingji's side. Yu Fu looked up at Lu Rui. She was already in a bad mood tonight. She did not think that Lu Rui would dare to do anything to her after being rude to her back then. Her eyes were utterly merciless. Lu Rui was a little afraid. Remembering that Yu Fu was a princess and no longer a little girl who could be bullied, she looked to Imperial Consortly for help. Imperial Consortly thought for a moment, then slowly stood up. You dare to act so discourteously when given honor and nearly hurt the princess. Before she could speak, Ning Qingji stood up and slammed the table, giving her a fright. Guards, take Lu Rui out and give her 50 strikes. Lu Rui's knees wobbled, as she immediately dropped to her knees. Your Majesty, spare me. Your Majesty, spare me. This girl did not do it on purpose. Imperial Consortly quickly sat back down while nobody was paying attention and acted as if she had not stood up to speak. Lu Jin hastily stood up from his seat to try and plead for his daughter. Your Majesty, please be lenient. She definitely did not intend to offend the princess. 50 strikes would kill her. I beg your Majesty to be lenient. Humph. Ning Qingji did not even bother looking at Lu Jin and simply said to Yu Fu, what does princess think? Yu Fu was unhappy with Lu Rui's actions, however, she knew just how heavy of punishment this was. If Lu Rui was really made to endure that punishment, she really might lose her life. Lu Rui was guilty, but she should not die for that. She stood up and said, forget it, I indeed was not injured. Your Majesty, please spare her. Ning Qingji was very displeased upon hearing this. Though you were not hurt, it is indeed a fact that she acted discourteously when given an honor. Hear our decree. Punish her with a length of white silk. Lu Rui passed out in fear, while Lu Jin felt completely drained. There was a chance of surviving 50 strikes, however, there was no such possibility. Yu Fu did not think that her pleas would have an adverse effect. All of the officials looked at Ning Qingji with looks of fear and disappointment. How could their ruler be this sort of person? How could he be willing to have one of his subjects' daughters sentenced to death over such a trivial matter? Would this not chill the hearts of all officials? The dazzling banquet hall lost its warmth and became chilly. Amidst the silence, only Lu Jin's begging and kowtowing could be heard. Thunk, thunk. Yu Fu revealed a difficult expression. Although young Miss Lu acted discourteously when given an honor, it was a result of a disagreement with me. I hope that your Majesty will spare young Miss Lu on my account. Ning Qingji had been waiting for this moment. We also wish to do something on your account. Unfortunately, you are just a princess. If you were our empress, we would surely be reluctant to oppose your wishes. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.